Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being patient with us tonight. Important happenings happening over at Lasky. Call the meeting to order. Tim, would you like to lead us to the pledge tonight, sir? Thank you.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Dr. Breggy, report of closed session action.
There was no action taken in board or closed session today.
And yet how utterly absurd that we were over a half hour late, right? Somebody had to say
Hard
it.
to justify.
My bike tire had a flat. What can I say? I don't know. Ms. Kraushauer, any cards? I love July. Okay, let's get right to the staff presentations, beginning with the COC.
Okay. I'm going to invite Dick Schreiber and Les Bronte up with me. I'm Richard Barron, president of the COC, and what we're presenting is the... Oh. Is there a switch? Hello? Hello? Is that better? Hello? Hello? Okay. Richard Barron, Dick Schreiber, Les Bronte from the Citizens Oversight. I guess now we're being called the BCOC going forward. And basically what we're presenting is the annual report for the two bonds, Measure E and Measure BH. Measure BH, there's no expenditures. Okay, Measure BH, there's no expenditures yet for this season, so there won't be a formal thing, but I'm going to defer. You know, everybody should have been given our report. I assume the board has the report. So would you like to make a couple of comments, Dick? And first of all, I want to thank Dick Schreiber spending a ton of time putting this together. I did nothing on this, work, so I'm not going to take credit. And Jason Brund and Mary Wells also helped. But I'm privileged to actually stand up at the mic. So I'm going to defer to Dick.
I think the COC was very pleased that we had seen substantial progress in taking care of recommendations we made in the past. Many have closed and making good progress in others. The one thing that troubled us was the fact that TCDS has a contract for providing professional services, and there is no budget limitation in how much they can spend. And we felt that was a control weakness because there's no way you can control expenditures if you don't have a budget. Other than that, I think everything went well. We were very pleased with both the performance auditor, Moss Adams, and the financial statement audit for Moss Levy, and we hope the district will continue those professional relationships for at least one more year. Are there any questions?
Colleagues, I'll go around the horseshoe.
I read your report, and I want to compliment everyone who had anything to do with it, who worked on it. It was thoughtful. I thought it was very honest. I thought where it was critical, and there were places where it was critical, it was proper. And I don't think that, I think a lot of people do not understand how important the COC is how critical it is. Without the COC, by state law, we wouldn't be able to have a construction program.
That's correct.
And so I really, I wish you would carry this back to all your members. I salute you and I thank you for the service.
And we are enjoy working with the district under its current leadership because we are seeing substantial improvements, so please keep up the good work.
Okay.
Much like public service and for certain as, volunteer board members, well, elected, but doing it for no pay, the positions that you guys hold on the COC and the work that you do is incredibly important. It's not, we don't take it for granted. I just want you to know that. It requires a lot of effort, a lot of attention to detail, a lot of energy, and we appreciate that and recognize the value. So thank you.
Thank
it was
you
a great
very much.
report.
I want to echo the words of my two colleagues, and I'd just like to tell you that in reading it, it's amazing that the work that you do put in and the time you get and the reward you get is not enough for what you do, and I really want to thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. Again, we're heavily reliant on our two contractors, Moss Adams and Moss Levy, and without them, their quality work, we would not be able to put together the reports that we did.
Just thank you so much for your report and for your commitment to the COC, and just for being here today as well. Thank you.
Welcome.
People should know that this report is available. It's attached to the agenda, so I would encourage those that are interested to go through it. It's not a lengthy report, but it really sums up a lot of the work that both the COC and our auditors, Performance and Financial, have been doing. I appreciate, gentlemen, you being here today to present this. Have you spoken in depth to the bond management team about your report prior to this meeting today?
I understand that they're about to have sold some bonds in
Well,
late June.
Regarding your report specifically, did you get a chance yet to sit down with them? Have they attended the meeting when you discussed this, or have you
No,
discussed
there was no need to when we did our report.
Okay. I just wanted to know if the lines of communication have been clear between all parties involved
I'll see.
as we move forward, because so we can continue addressing the concerns that still remain from the audit findings.
Yeah, one thing I think I'm curious about, I know you sold some bonds in late June, the new bond fund, and I hope no money was expended, because there is, we'll have to do a more complex report for FY19.
Okay. Duly noted. And I know we're about to have a presentation about the bond financing in a moment, so if you'd like to stick around, that would be great.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Okay.
Rich?
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, the only thing I want to just real briefly say that, if you do compare, at least since I've been on the COC, prior reports, really what a drastic difference, and to the current board, and, the staff, and superintendent's office is really making giant strides in the right direction. And I think that's, because every other one since I've been on the COC have been, very different things. So I think, keep it up, but don't stop. I think that's the most important thing is, and take, these things serious. Les, do you want to? Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you all.
I want to jump in with one last connection comment. I think a lot of it also has to do with our bond program and construction facilities team. I think a lot of the improvements that we're seeing are because the leadership in that area is so incredibly strong. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you for bringing that up. That is true. Okay. Moving on to Kegent. Chris.
Good evening, everyone. We have a PowerPoint for you here tonight, which hopefully we can get pulled up on the screen here. So I'm going to be going through, thank you. I'm going to go through 3 areas tonight. First, we want to give you the results of the Measure BH Series A bond sale, which closed in June. Yes. Second, we'll go through a potential bond refinancing for the district. And lastly, I want to give you an annual update per your board policy 3470. So with that, let's just go ahead and dive in. So last time we were here back in March, the board approved the issuance of the Series A bonds under Measure BH for $160 million. That was to be sold as all current interest bonds, no capital appreciation bonds. And the remaining $225 million we have planned out for starting in 2021 every 2 years for the remainder of the 225. As part of the bond issuance process, we met with Standard & Poor's and Moody's to get the district's credit rating upgrade. Dr. Breggy represented the district very well in speaking about the district's credit profile. And as a result of those meetings, Moody's affirmed the district's AAA rating, which is the highest possible rating on their standard. They commented in particular about the strong management team of the districts, including the board, the wealthy tax base that you have here in Beverly Hills, and your basic aid community funded status. S&P, Standard & Poor's, affirmed the district's AA plus rating and also had a lot of really good things to say about the district. So we were very pleased with the outcome of our ratings process. So on June 13th, with our new ratings in hand, we went out to the investment community and got these bonds sold via competitive sale, which means investors from around the nation were able to bid on them to give us the best interest rate for your taxpayers. We received 7 bids, with the winning bid coming from Mesero Financial at a true interest cost, or TIC, of 2.98. And you'll see that the spread between the highest and lowest was 0.016. So definitely worth it to do that competitive sale. We think you got very strong results as a result of the Beverly Hills name and your strong credit ratings. So what does that translate to? This is your debt service schedule. So this shows the principal and interest payments for the Measure BH Series A bonds. So if you look at the very bottom, you sold $160 million, and the total cost for it is $240 million with interest. So that's a repayment ratio or total cost divided by the amount you borrowed of 1.5 to 1. Under state law, we have to be under 4 to 1, so you are far below that required maximum. And with all of that in, your all-inclusive interest rate was 3.01%, which is a pretty incredibly low interest rate for such a, for a 25-year financing. For taxpayers, this results in a tax rate profile that looks like this. So starting on the 1920 tax roll, taxpayers will see a tax rate just shy of the $44 limit that they approved when Measure BH was approved. That will stay in effect for 2 years when we expect that the Series B bonds will be sold. So once we have Series B, C, and any future bonds that are sold, this tax rate profile will change, and we should be around $44 in every single year, probably going out to around 2044. Are there any questions on Measure BH? All right. So with that, we can move on to Section 2, the bond refinancing. As you may have seen, interest rates have dropped pretty significantly over the last few months, and as a result, the district does have a refinancing opportunity with its 2012 general obligation refunding bonds. So under current interest rates, we're estimating that you could refinance these bonds for about $1.2 million in savings. Under IRS regulations, it would have to be sold as a taxable refinancing, but even with that in consideration, the savings are still significant. And on page 10 is an actual summary of the savings. On the left-hand side, you could see the year-by-year savings starting in 2020, going out to 2030, for a total of that $1.2 million number I mentioned earlier. I also want to point out on the right-hand side the present value savings percentage, 5.04. Typically, districts consider refinancings when the savings is above a 3% present value savings. So we're well above that benchmark, and we also believe these interest rates are a little bit conservative, so hopefully we end up at a number that's even higher than what's shown here. If the board would like to move forward with this refinancing, there's a few steps involved. So we actually already had a conference call with Moody's, and Mr. Roach represented the district for that call. We expect to get a rating back, probably our same AAA rating, later this week. From there, we would finalize the documents for investors and get the bonds sold as early August and get it closed by September. So as part of this, in front of you tonight as an approval item is a various slew of documents put together by your legal counsel for the bond refinancing. So if there are any questions on that, please feel free to let me know. Any other questions on this refinancing before I move on to the annual update? All right. And this last section is your debt issuance and management policy, board policy 3470, says that you're supposed to have an annual report to the board regarding debts issued by the district, including a slew of information shown here. So I'm going to go through slide by slide to cover each of these topics. So page 14, debt issued by the district. This is just a snapshot of all of the bonds the district has outstanding, when they were issued, when they mature, and how much is outstanding at this point. So in total, the district has $520 million in bonds outstanding, and that does include your most recent issuance under Measure BH. On page 15, you have your actual and projected tax rates. So for the most recent fiscal year, your tax rate for all of your bonds was $85.09 per 100,000 of assessed valuation. And you can see on the bottom that the $85 shown in 2019. Once Measure BH hits the tax rolls, we do expect it to go up to about just over $130 per 100,000. And you can see when the old bonds, Prop S and Measure K, drop off in 2030, and Measure E expires in 2040. The next page, bonding capacity. Bonding capacity is a statutory calculation of the amount of bonds that can be outstanding at any given point. And the way it's calculated is you take the district's total assessed valuation, which your current assessed valuation is about $34 billion, and you multiply it by 2.5%. You then subtract out any outstanding bonds the district already has, which is the $520 million number we already mentioned, which leaves you an available bonding capacity of $334 million. Of course, you also have to take into account the amount actually approved by voters. So with Measure BH, you have another $225 million to issue over the next few years. So you have more than enough bonding capacity to issue your remaining Measure BH. And in addition, by the time you are ready to issue the rest of Measure BH, your assessed valuation will likely have grown, and your outstanding debts will have been more partially repaid. So they will have gone down. So this number will increase over time. Page 17, a market update. I mentioned earlier that interest rates have dropped pretty dramatically over the last few months, and you can see that in both charts, but in particular the chart on the right, which shows interest rates from June 2014 to present. Those are Treasury rates, and you can see how rates have declined over the last few months. And this has to do with some of the economic uncertainty in Europe and trade tensions with China. Page 18, new developments for California bond financings. The biggest one has been the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that went into effect in 2017, but it's continued to have an impact on the municipal bond market. The biggest item being that you can no longer refinance bonds ahead of their call date unless it's done on a taxable basis. And that has had a pretty significant impact on school districts that have wanted to refinance their debt. As a result, some districts are adding a shorter redemption feature. So instead of being able to redeem it at 10 years, maybe now they'll do it with 6, 7, or 8, 9 years instead of that 10. So we are seeing that implication from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Major new legislation. The biggest item that impacts school districts and bonds is that the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board added an amendment to 15C212, which means that whenever a material event occurs, right now you have to file a notice within a 10-day period. They added a couple new items onto the list of things that need to be notified to investors, and that would be an incurrence of a financial obligation or a default or event of acceleration, termination event on any of those financial obligations. So the district is aware, Mr. Roach is aware of these changes, so we will be working with the district in the future to make sure that it complies with these new rules. And lastly, district's compliance with post-issuance requirements. This is just to say that you've been monitoring your compliance. It's part of your bond program. And the district works with its financial advisor and legal team to make sure all of the compliance items are done on an annual basis. And I won't go through those in detail. But are there any questions on this, on the annual update?
Also get the, somebody can get the lights, please, too. Thank you. Mr. Spitz, did you have anything?
No, I want to thank you for the report. It's comprehensive and understandable.
Great.
And Looks like we're well represented by you.
Thank you.
Did you have any questions?
I agree. Thank you for your presentation.
Oh yeah, thank you for your presentation.
Okay. Okay. We're good? Okay.
Great.
Okay, I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank
and,
you.
and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. 2 down, 2 to go. Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We have a short presentation tonight just to give the board a little update on what's happened since the adoption of our budget and the adoption of the state budget. So as the board knows, we have to adopt our budget usually before the state adopts their budget. So in many years, there's some changes that happen at the state level that impact our budget going forward into the year. So this year we have a couple of changes. They're not huge, but they need to be referenced for the board to understand what's going on with the budget. In special education, there is a small change, and in pension or PERS and STIRS, there's been a small change. So we'll go through these pretty quickly. Our special education funding comes through AB 602. We're part of a SELPA, which is an organization of school districts. We're in a Tri-City SELPA, which is Culver City, Santa Monica, Malibu, and Beverly Hills Unified. We get our funding for special ed through this SELPA. So across the state, there's many, many SELPAs, and they're all funded at a different level. So per average daily attendance, one SELPA may get $600 per student. Another SELPA may get $800 per student. So this inequity has come to the attention of Sacramento, and they're trying to stabilize this funding. So it's going to be many years to stabilize the funding, but for us, our SELPA is going to get an extra $350,000 in additional funds in 1920. So for Beverly Hills Unified, that means additional revenue of about $61,000. So that's a good thing. We're also
Sorry,
gonna,
Mr. Roach, is, on that last one, does Santa Monica, is it done by population? By
yes, it's
okay,
done
so
by
Santa Monica, Malibu gets the
lion's share.
Okay,
Correct.
thanks.
Right. Good question. We're also going to get a new grant, Early Intervention Preschool Grant. These are new funds. These will not come through the SELPA. They'll come directly to the district. We're anticipating about $8,900 per pupil. We don't have a huge preschool program. The anticipated enrollment's about 10 students. But given the program costs us about $300,000 per year, we're looking at getting about $85,000 to support that program. So this would be new funding to support this early intervention preschool grant. So pension costs, STIRS, and PERS, I'm sure you've heard a lot about this going up over the past couple of years, and in the future our PERS and STIRS costs are going to go up. If you look on this chart, you'll see what our 18-19 rate was for STIRS. It was 16.28%. At the May revise, we thought it was going to go up to 16.7%. But the final rate was actually a little higher for employers. It was 17.1%. It's going to cost us about $21,000, $22,000 in the next fiscal year. That's offset in part by a reduction in PERS, which is for our classified employees. The 18-19 rate was 18.062%. The May revise had it going up to 20.73%, but the actual final rate is about 19.7%. So there's a decrease of about $23,000. So there's a wash there basically between PERS and STIRS. So in total, when you look at the final state budget and some agency changes, the projected impact for Beverly Hills Unified is approximately about $147,000 to the good, or additional revenue, or reduced expenditures. That's not a huge amount in a $70 million budget, but we wanted to bring that to the board's attention. Additionally, we want to bring to the board attention that we're still working on closing the 18-19 books. Our fiscal year ends June 30th every year. So between July 1st and the middle of August each year, we close the books. We finalize our revenue expenditures We make sure our program transfers and allocations are done correctly. And then in late August or early September, before September 15th deadline, we bring the unaudited actuals to the board. And those unaudited actuals become the basis of our audit report that we bring to the board in December. So we're right in the middle of that process of closing the books, but some things have come to light that we want to share with the board. So our 18-19 general fund revenues, when we adopted the budget back in June, we estimated that our 18-19 general fund revenues were going to be about $73.6 million. Our expenditures in the general fund were going to be about $75.9 million. And we projected that we were going to have an operating deficit in the general fund for last year of about $2.3 million. That was our projection in June. As of right now, and we're still closing the books, please remember that, but it looks like we're going to have lower expenditures in certain categories. And probably the biggest shift we're going to see is certificated salaries. In June, we thought our certificated salaries in the general fund would be about $33.7 million, but our actuals through June 30th right now are about $32.1 million. We'll still have some accruals in payroll, but we're thinking that we're going to have some reduced expenditures to the tune of about $1.6 million in our certificated salaries. And we're going to have some other changes, maybe in revenue. They're trending a little bit higher, but some of our local general fund contribution programs like special ed or food services, their contributions may be a little higher, and that may offset some of your increased revenue. Well, as I've said, we're still closing the books, and we have a little bit of work to do, and we'll bring this to the board as soon as those books are closed. But we wanted to bring to the board's attention that $1.6 million variance because that's fairly substantial. And it'll make our operating deficit smaller, and it'll make our ending fund balance larger when we finalize the books. And that's it, and I'd be happy to take any questions that the board may have.
No, thank you, though.
Well, this is a good news report, and so I'm happy with the good news, and it's looking good. Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
There are not a lot of opportunities for us to have updates like this in between, or well, that they haven't been in between, when we actually approve the different types of budgets. So I'm really thankful to have a little bit of a looking glass into where we are kind of in the interim. This is really helpful, useful information. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for this very clear, very understandable presentation. And I really think it shows that we're in a little bit better position than I thought we would be when I saw the budget earlier in the year. So I really thank you again for that very clear and easy to understand presentation.
Okay, Mr. Roach, thank you so much for this presentation. I echo the sentiments of every board member to my right. I do have some questions just for clarification. Could you tell me, please, the preschool grant? Is this referring to the TK program? Or
No,
is
ma'am.
this, yes or no?
No,
This
it's
is
a totally different
totally
program.
different. So this is something new that we would be handling, or
No, this is our special education preschool class that we've had for the last.
so it's just
Few
specific to special ed.
Yes, preschool.
Okay, for 89. And how many students are in there? I'm sorry.
10.
10 only. Well, that's what I figured. I want to make sure. Is it 10? I didn't see that. I'm sorry, I missed
Right
that.
now, we're budgeting for 10.
Okay. Great. I have one more question in regards to special ed. I think I had asked this, and I said I would be asking it in public, since we probably didn't have enough time. Just based on the interim budget report that was approved, the last one would have been in March. Do we have numbers as to what the budget was for special ed, and what that number was as we adopted the budget recently in June?
Trustee, when we look back at second interim, the entire budget for special education was about, expense budget was about $11.6 million. Between second interim and the estimated actuals, we actually reduced that expenditure budget to about $11.4 million. And we'll believe that we're going to end up somewhere around $11.4 million. So between second interim and the end of the year, we actually reduced the expected expenditures by about $200,000.
And that's going in, so our budget going in for special ed without this would have been what, 11.4?
For 18-19,
For
correct,
18,
trustee?
19. And let's see, one more question. Do we know how much of that is certificated? Or salaries, I should say, more specifically, for special ed?
So the special ed budget is much like the entire district budget, and I don't have that number in front of me, but it's going to run between 85 and 90% of the entire
90%.
special education budget.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Roach, thank you for this update and report, and I should caution you, never tell the board that they may have more money, okay? It's a dangerous place to be. Okay, Dr. Berge?
Thank you, Mr. Margot. So thousands of hours have gone into the reconfiguration planning stage, and I remember distinctly just 6-7 months ago as a team of administrators sitting down and having to do something very difficult in the reconfiguration process, and that is looking at what the projections would be. We were tasked with looking at what savings reconfiguration would bring, as well as program enhancements, and how could we reinvest money from savings back into our programs to make improvements at the elementary and middle school level, as well as the high school level. This evening, Mr. Seaman and Ms. Chisholm are going to provide you with an update on that information, which again started as projections and then now have fallen into just 2 weeks before school, some more of a reality situation so that you're aware of how far we were to meeting all of our goals.
Mr. Seaman.
Thank you. So what we'd like to do tonight is be able to walk you through a side-by-side comparison. So as I walk through the first couple of slides, you're going to notice on the left hand of the slide is the projected as of the board meeting on 10/26/2018. And you'll see the first slide highlights the Hawthorne school. So we had projected 546 students, and you'll see on the left-hand side, it's a breakdown per grade level with the total number of students that we projected with the actual classes that we had asked for at that time. Now on the right-hand column on each of these slides, you'll see where we currently sit as of 7/15/2019. We have 570 students enrolled in Hawthorne as of July 15th. And you'll notice the number of students that we had projected almost are identical, but in some areas have increased by 3, 4, all the way up to, 5 students. And so you'll see the breakdown in the classes on the right-hand side as well. One thing I do want to highlight again is just kind of those bolded areas, the kindergarten and the second grade, those are some of our fuller sections in the classes. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to Horace Mann. And again, we had projected as of October 26, 2018, that we were going to have 696 students based off reconfiguration. And that was the simple fold of taking our Beverly Vista students and placing them into Horace Mann. As of July 15th of this year, we actually have 719 students currently enrolled, projected to show up on school as of August 12th. Again, you'll see the breakdown of those classes, the number of students, and the number of classes that we are created and assigned FTE or teachers to. Now on to the middle school. So when you're looking at Beverly Vista Middle School, at the time when we had projected, we were thinking there'd be 912 students, combining the 4 middle schools that we had at the time. And actually, we've increased enrollment close to 40 students from what we had projected. We have 40 new students basically either returning back to the district or new to the district. And you'll notice that our largest class is actually the middle. The 7th grade class has jumped by about 30 students. So when I'm going to jump into the high school as well is I know that some people had made mention that our high school is shrinking or there are a lot of students exiting the high school. And what I want to do is I'm going to jump back a slide, and I want you to notice in our projected, meaning when we had 4K buildings, our class sizes were about 300 students per grade level. Even with the current enrollment, we are still right around 300 plus in the 7th grade. So when I go to the high school, we are at that 300 mark. Some a little over and one's just slightly under. So if from a projection standpoint and from an instructional educational services standpoint, when I'm proposing things, I always utilize that 300 mark because that's about what we have living within our community. Because I could even go back to where we have increased enrollment in our elementaries, and when you start to add up the courses, the classes 3rd grade across the district, you're going to come out to close to about 300 students. Another thing that I just want to highlight too is when you recall in BHUSD, we had removed permits in the years between 2007 and 2008. And if you do the timeline itself, over the last 2 years, we have finally have graduated those last set of permit students that hadn't belonged within in our district. As I move along, one thing that I do want to highlight is as we are starting to find out about our federal funding and some of our other resources to be able to support our students, some of the areas that we look at are our Title I and Title III that we'll be talking about. So on the left-hand column, you'll see that's Title I. Title I is based off students that qualify for free or reduced lunch program. And so you'll notice that two of our largest areas that we are primarily focused on is obviously building that early foundation, and that's Horace Mann with 138 students identified, and Beverly Vista Middle School with 189 students identified. So a lot of our Title I funding will be supporting intervention programs there. But we are still kicking off in introducing intervention programs TK through 12th grade. There will be letters have been mailed home to some of our parents in the community already asking for their students to participate in our Title I math or ELA support courses in elementary, middle school, and even in high school. On the right side of this slide is our Title III. Title III is our English learning students. And so you'll notice that, again, Horace Mann does have our largest population of English learners with 89 students. And that justifies some of the staffing at both Horace Mann and Beverly Vista to be able to support those populations. As I continue on, staffing projections versus what are current. So as of October 26th, Dr. Brighten and I did a reconfiguration presentation and asked for specific things. We had asked originally for elementary staffing at 54. Staff members, we were currently staffed that year at 70 classroom teachers in the elementary. We are currently sitting, even with additional enrollment at both Hawthorne and Horace Mann, with 56 staff members that are going to be delivering classroom instruction. In the middle school, we had come and asked for 29.2 FTE for a core curriculum area. At this time, as of this board meeting, we are at exactly 29.2 with the increase of the middle school population, with more students being enrolled than we had projected. In addition, at the time, we were utilizing 61 FTE across 4 middle schools to support those same students. We are right now at 48 FTE within our middle school to support those students and all the electives. And I'm going to jump to the next slide is to do a side-by-side school comparison in 2018 to 2019, and I'm going to reference a packet that the Board of Education has. At the very back, you will see the 6th grade and the 8th grade elective sheet from last year at El Rodeo. So if you look at 2018, 2019, we ran 4 middle schools. We offered 5 elective options to our 6th grade students and 11 options for our 8th grade students. We offered only 2 honors levels in English Language Arts and in math. And in the math, we only had 2 layers all the way through. We had regular or we had honors. In 2019-2020, with a reduction in FTE, you'll see with the 1 middle school, we had offered 40 electives with 38 running, meaning it was based off student interest and student choice. So 2 electives, unfortunately, did not have enough student interest to run the course. We also have all the electives that we have direct entrance or a pathway into a high school program. We are also offering honors levels coursework in English, math, science, and in social studies with an additional layer of math within the 7th and 8th grade curriculum. I'm going to hand over to Ms. Chisholm.
Okay, continuing along the same lines, we've been able to increase our program offerings throughout the district, throughout special education. Last year, we only had a couple of options at most sites. We had our resource specialist program, which was primarily pull-out instruction and some co-teaching. Through the reconfiguration process, we've been able to expand our resource specialist program to have co-teaching, pull-out instruction, and reading and math intervention, which is targeted intervention based on the student's instructional level. Additionally, we've been able to add a new program for our students who need additional support for emotional support or behavioral support at Beverly Vista, and that's our Counseling Enriched program. Additionally, this is not on the slide, and I apologize. Oh, it is. Mild to moderate special day classes were added to all sites. This was not the case for the 18-19 school year. And we've been able to do that without adding any additional staff. We were able to do that by reallocating our staff and providing support throughout the district. For the 1920 school year, as we've discussed before, here are the programs offered by site. So at Horace Mann, we will have the resource program with the different levels as discussed in the previous slide. So co-teaching, me and this clicker. Sorry. Anyway, I'll keep talking. Thanks, Josh. Resource specialists, which will be co-teaching, pull-out instruction, and as well as the intervention. We will also have our special day class for both primary and upper primary level. So it's like a K2 or K3 breakdown, and then a 4th and 5th grade class. Thank you. You click. And then our prime program. Thank you. Then at Hawthorne, we will have a resource specialist program with the same 3 levels and special day classes, again, a lower primary and upper primary class. And then both at Beverly Vista and Beverly Hills High School, we will have our resource specialist program, special day classes for each grade level, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, our prime program, and our transition program, which is for our students who are 18 to 22 years old who are earning a certificate of completion, as well as our Counseling Enriched program.
Last but not least, on October 26, 2018, we had left that presentation with a list of items that we needed to conquer to be able to finalize the reconfiguration process. And so we wanted to just be able to leave this here as benchmarks of where we were, what we needed to accomplish, and where we're going. And so you'll notice the last 2 things we're right on track in progress as far as the move classrooms and teachers, and then the staff, student, and parent orientations in August. Thank you.
That's it for that.
Colleagues, comments or questions? Thomas, you can start.
Yes, I just had a quick question what FTE stands for.
Thank you, Thomas. Full-time equivalent, meaning it's a full-time teacher.
Okay. And also, what are the 3 levels? I know honors, regular, and then...
So right now we have a regular level, we have an accelerated level, and then now we have an honors level. And so we were able to separate and pull apart the honors and the regular students and place them into an accelerated for them to be able to get that Algebra 1 by 8th grade year.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Well, as Superintendent Breggy remarked at the outset, this is the culmination. This is really an indication of what's been accomplished. A little in advance because got a few weeks to go before we begin, but I really can't begin to tell you how exciting this is. There was a time long ago when the Beverly Hills Unified School District was one of the considered a lighthouse district for the entire country. I can tell you that when people moved into town, a big reason was the schools. And it slipped a lot over the years for various reasons. And what I see here is we're coming back. We're coming back in spades, and I can't tell you how exciting this is. It's one of the reasons that that somebody volunteers to sit on this Board of Education, to see the quality of the educational program brought forward like this. So I congratulate everybody on staff that that has caused this to happen. It began, by the way, with a group of administrative staff and a couple of school board members, and the output, that was called the steering committee, and the output was a tremendous action plan with how many tasks? 60? I don't know. A huge number of
There were
tasks.
close to 60.
Huh?
Close to 60.
Close to 60 tasks. Each task was assigned, somebody was assigned responsible to complete that task. Each task had a target completion date. That was an action plan. And it was the basis for what we see here tonight. So, can't tell you how exciting it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a little bit of a unique perspective on this because I was able to participate in the Future Focus Schools team. So I was actually part of the group that was considering all of what the opportunities and potentials were to reconfiguration. So my runway was long on this project. And it is incredibly, I've said this several times in the last 6 months from the dais, it is so remarkable to see the amount of work that has been done, and not just how much work has been done, but how closely aligned what we believed was possible and what was, projected as the workflow and what needed to be done and where we are. It's really a remarkable testament to the quality of leadership in the district. So I thank you so much. I'm so excited for what this year holds. I can't wait to see it all come to life and into fruition. But the big, meaty part of what it is that makes that possible is the work that's been done over the last year, really a little less than a year, putting everything together and making all of these things possible. So I'm so impressed, and it's really a testament to the staff and to the administration and to the leadership in the district. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, having been in the district for many, many years, I won't mention how many, this is the third time that reconfiguration has come up, and it is a realization before I perhaps leave the district in one way or another. So it makes me feel very, very good. I'd just like to make a few comments about some of the things that I was on the steering committee and the work that was done and so on and so forth. A little bit of what's good comes a little bit of bad for a little thinking, and that is that we are a basic aid student, and we are providing a program now second to none. I mean, with everything. And what's happened? Our students are coming back, and we are bulging. We're going to be bulging at the seams. So that is going to present some kind of a challenge to us in the next few years if this continues, because I think it will. When word gets out that this is what we're doing. We're going to be the lighthouse again of schools, and they're going to come back, and we're going to be bulging, and we're going to have perhaps a little bit of a problem. Okay, from my lipstick up his ears, but I'm very concerned. Some of the classes are already near bulging, and what are the limits that we can put in them? I see that if we get 1 or 2 more students, we have to open up more classrooms already. What does that mean? It means another teacher, and that's something that we have to consider. I know we'll get the best ones possible, and we'll do a great job. I'm amazed that we can do the revamping of the special ed program without any change or increase in staffing. That makes me feel very, very good. I am particularly pleased with the honors classes that are coming along and what that's going to present, and I'm just so excited to see some of those. And lastly, I would love to have a walkthrough of the schools now to see how they're coming along and being reconfigured so that our students will be ready to go into them on August 12th. I would love to see all the work that's been done before the kids come back to school. So if that can be arranged, I would like that, just so that I know I'll feel good going back to Hawthorne and seeing what they've done to make it ready. And I'm so excited. My calendar is cleared to be there for the orientation days and for the opening days and everything else. So again, my hats off to the great work of the administration in doing this.
Thank you.
So first of all, I just want to say thank you. It's really interesting. I think that when 3 of us were here looking at the numbers, at the projections that sometimes are not disclosed, in public because it's personnel.
Right.
And so it's just really hats off to you. I know Dustin and Dr. Breggy were like the engineers and of really trying to figure out the targets of where we were with FTEs. And so to see that you've actually arrived at that is really a testament to you both. So thank you for doing that and for being so accurate. I know it's not easy to do, but you did it. So you do. I think you deserve recognition for that. So thank you, and I do recognize that. I'm very excited for the math program that we are now reintroducing at our middle school. And I say reintroducing because there was a time where this district had geometry in the way that we are now providing. And so I take a tremendous pride in that as a member of this board, and you should also as educators, because it is the right thing to do for our students, and it really puts us in the path of being competitive with other districts and providing students who deserve to be in that grade level of instruction to have. So that's a real big gain for this district that cannot be overlooked. So thank you so much for bringing us back to par where we should have been. And I'm sorry that there was an interruption there, but we're back. And so I think that is an incredible gain that needs to be recognized. And of course, the electives, the fact that we are so rich in electives without compromising our FTEs is incredible. It's an incredible task, and I think we're better for it. And we'll see I know we'll be analyzing data next year as well. And so the work is not over, but this is a great beginning, and it's a great way to start the year and a great way for this board to really land on reconfiguration. So thank you for that as well. With that said, I do have some questions. Could you just, Dustin, you talked about 56, there's a gain of 2 for elementary staffing. So we used to have 54 and we have 56. What grades were those for? That would be page 7. Was projected, or is that where we're at right now? I think it was page 7. Yeah, page 7.
Hold on 1 second. Yep, I'm just going to our original. So if you look, so 1 is the increase in first grade at Hawthorne, which is from 3 to 4.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and on my original projection, we also didn't have TK. I added TK after the fact. That's the original 2 as well. So when you actually add, if you were to remove your TKs originally, increase the 1, and then I'm going to go here. One of the things that is in conversation is on the right column, there was 5 sections on the original conversation. on first grade, and we are in the process of possibly closing that section due to transfers. So as the transfer process releases. So it's 2 first grades toggle back and forth, and then you remove the TKs because we're always going to have 2 TK classes.
Okay,
And that's where the numbers will all add up.
great. Thank you.
One
And
at Hawthorne, one at Horseman.
One at Horseman,
Yep.
got that. Thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
I also have one more question, a few more questions for Mrs. Chisholm on special ed. I just want to be clear, are STC classes new classes that we're adding this year or not? Or did we have those in operation last year, STC?
We had a few throughout the district, but we did not have them operational at all sites. So we now have them operational at all sites
But-
for 1920.
So if there was four sites last year,
Mm-hmm.
where did we offer those for for K through 8th? And where are we offering them now with 3, without the high school, of course?
Would have been Beverly Vista and Hawthorne
Last year?
last year. And then for 1920, it will be at both TK and Beverly Vista, both TK 5 sites, Horseman and Hawthorne, and Beverly Vista Middle School. And we have multiple levels of SDC classes as well.
You split the classes up at Hawthorne, though. There's a 1-3 and then a 4-5, the SDC classes. And then I think I know that there's 4, but they're split up by grade levels.
Right, that's what I referenced when I said we have a lower elementary and a upper elementary class.
Okay.
So in essence, we're having one at BV, one at Hawthorne and Horseman. So at Horseman and Hawthorne, that would equal to four SDCs?
Yes, we have an upper elementary SDC and a lower elementary SDC at both sites.
And why did we do that? Because I remember just by looking at we had 6 students at TK through 3rd grade and 11 for Hawthorne altogether. Did we combine these last year? Were these offered as one class, or why are we separating them?
I'm not sure what classes you're talking about. Could you give me a little
SDC.
bit more detail?
Well, upper and lower, were they combined last year?
It was only one class, and it was actually a teacher who had a 5th, an additional assignment to be able to maintain the students in the classroom. It was not structured as it will be for the 1920 school year. So these will be classes this year where the students are in that particular class the majority of the day, except for as indicated in their IEP.
Thank you. RSP. Okay, so just to go over I just want to make sure. So for the prime program, not the prime program, the SDC program, we have 6 students. Are the numbers the same basically for Horseman? It's still 6 students and 12 at Horseman?
Which classes are you referring to, please?
The TK, SDC at Horseman and the SDC 4th through 5th grade for Horseman as well. So we had 6, we were told on, I believe it was June 18 or June, I don't remember the date of this. The numbers were 6 and 12. So have those numbers changed? Has there been a change? Then this is Horseman because of the color coding.
Correct. So at Horace Mann, currently our primary SDC has approximately 6 students enrolled, and our upper elementary SDC has 14 students.
14, so we went up by 3 since we the board was told there was 11. So is it 14 now? Mrs. Chisholm?
Yes.
Okay, and what about for Hawthorne? Yes, we were told it was 6 and 11, so what is it at now? Has there been a change in that?
Currently, I'm looking at the classes, with the classes that I have, 6 and 11. And these are separated by age and grade level and instructional level as well.
Okay. And one more question. The RSPI class, there's RSP and then there's RSPI intervention, correct? And these are both 2 different classes?
No, they're both resource specialists. I put intervention on there so that the board was aware of who was teaching the intervention program, but they're both RSP teachers.
Let's see here. So it's one program. I just want to be clear. So it's one so the RSP used to be in place last year. We are now just including an intervention program to be part of the RSP?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, but it doesn't include two different teachers, or is there two different teachers for that?
There are two resource teachers at the site, and they both are resource teachers. They both have a caseload, and they both provide either co-teaching support, pull-out instruction, or intervention based on their assignment. But they're both resource specialist teachers for the school site.
I guess where the confusion for me begins is I wasn't aware that we had broken up the SDC program into two different grade groups last year, and then we have
No,
the
not last year, for the 1920 school year coming.
Well,
We did-
I'm sorry, yes, we didn't have that in place last year. We are going to have it in place this year.
Yes.
And so the numbers don't seem to have changed dramatically. So my question is, why are we doing that? And secondly, the intervention program, because do we have a person that's doing the intervention? It seems that we do.
One
but
of
we
the
didn't
resource
have one.
specialist teachers at the site will do that. Will teach the intervention program both in reading and math for the students who have that indicated on their IEP.
Okay, and the reason we broke it up is because we decided that this is a better way, or
We broke up what?
the SDC in grades.
It's broken up by grade level and instructional level.
Why did we do that?
Because we don't want to have a kindergartner in the same class as a fifth grader instructionally.
Okay. All right. So, but we were doing that in the past, though, right?
Yes, because of how the schedule was made and how the program was designed. So we were able to, through reconfiguration, revamp it and improve it so that we're able to group our students instructionally and by their ability.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And you. That's it.
So this past week, we celebrated man's first steps on the moon, which was obviously quite an undertaking. And although our district reconfiguration is not as internationally newsworthy as the accomplishments of those engineers and pilots and even politicians who put a person on the moon, for us it is nonetheless incredibly important of how our own engineers, the staff, and the pilots, the teachers, and the politicians, us, can make something remarkable happen. August 12th, though, doesn't bring us to the end of the reconfiguration process. It actually brings us to the beginning. So I strongly believe that everyone has to step it up like never before in order to make this grand experiment succeed. And Dr. Breggy, I do implore you that, that come August 12th, that our students receive the same benefits that we imagined sitting here months or a year or so ago, that we said we're going to provide this for our students, that they actually get that. It looks like it's moving in that direction. I'm very encouraged about what I see and what I hear. So I'm hoping we'll get to that point. And like Mrs. Marcus said, that people will be, bursting at the seams to come back to the district as long as they can afford the housing in the city. So thank you very much for this. This will come with your report after consent. Okay. Thank you, colleagues. Moving on to consent calendar. Was anybody pulling anything?
9Q, please.
Okay.
Also 9N and 9V.
9,
N
yeah.
and 9V.
V as in Victor?
E as in customer?
V is in Victor.
Victor, thank you.
V is in
Victor.
Is staff going to, modify the certificate?
Yeah, I got it. Did you have any more? So I have B1, M, N, Q, and V.
Wait, which ones again?
B1, M,
What about B2?
nobody pulled that.
Nobody pulled it. Did you want to pull it?
I think that's where,
Okay. So pull.
I pulled B2.
Okay. B1, B2, M, N, Q, and V. Okay. Since I'm holding this paper, I will say I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar less items B1, B2, M, N, Q, and V.
I'll second.
Oh, that's a tie. You want to fight over that, or?
It's okay.
That's
you can
okay.
have it.
Mr. Spitz will second it, thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent carries. Let's go to item B1. I need a motion for the certificated personnel report.
I move we accept the certified personnel report, item B1, 9B1.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Marcus and Mr. Spitz. Who had a question on this one?
I did.
Okay.
Was I the only one?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, so I had asked about, let's see if I can pull it here. So last week, Mrs. Walker appeared on the certificated report. I see her name again for the same purpose, for the workability grant for extra pay. Are we approving additional hours, or are these the same different hours? I know there's a little bit of a change. I think one was for 164, and I think this one's for 172. I have to pull it up.
It's 176 hours.
This week,
And
but
it's,
last week was 164.
right.
So
Well,
what are we?
This is also this is the past school year that we're approving this for.
Okay.
Correct?
so-
It's only one item. I don't know why it appeared again, but it's one stipend.
So last week, she was on the report. So I have to pull out last week. So is last week's report for next year, or is it for this last year?
It should only be for the year that just ended, the 18-19 school year.
Okay, so what did we approve last week then? Because she was on there.
I'll pull it up. Marvel of technology.
I had asked about that one as well last week. That's why I remember it. We're on the certificate right now.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up. Give me a sec. It's a very lengthy.
No, I remember what you're speaking of, Mrs. Hacker. It might be an error it's there, but there's only, for clarification, there's only one stipend for the 18-19 school year.
Okay, so I have it. I'm sorry, I have it in front of me. The one you approved last week was for 1920. This one is for 1819 tonight.
No,
Okay.
there shouldn't
it's
be one
last
for
year.
1920, so we need to correct that.
I'm sorry.
So that's
There
why I bring
should
it
not
up.
be one for 1920.
So
Okay,
I
so
think in
that's
order for-
that's listed as last week's.
I think that was an
Approval?
error, and
So
when,
we-
because I know I spoke with the business department when they asked me, and I said, no, it's for 1820. I think it was an assumption that it was for 1819 because the PAF came in after July 1st, or the personnel action form came in after July 1st, so it was an assumption it was for 1920, but via email, it was clarified that it was for the 1819 school
So I
year.
think that needs to come back to us so we can correct the record, Mr. Margot, so that we don't have double payment, because we'd essentially be approving another stipend for a different year, and it's already in the record.
Right,
So I
right.
think we need to correct the record. In order to do that, we need to have it come back.
Or
And
just could be a revision excluding that entry.
Well, this was already voted on.
that was
So
voted on,
It's
though.
going to have to come back
Oh, I
and
see.
get
Okay.
nullified somehow.
Oh, because
through
you're looking
between-
at the okay.
Yeah,
This
with
is
an
last
I'm
explanation.
sorry, I thought you
Yeah,
were looking at this
exactly.
one.
So tonight is okay because we are approving 1819.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct, and it should
Okay.
only be for 1819. Mrs.
Okay,
Hacker
so
is
then we'll
correct.
just give direction for staff to
Yep.
bring,
Well, I still have a
to
follow-up
correct
question.
yeah, that's fine,
Yeah.
to correct this one on the
Yes.
next agenda.
Sure.
Okay,
So-
thank you for bringing that up, Mrs. Hacker.
Thank you.
Another question on the certificated.
Well, I still have another question. So because we're at the end of the school year, and so if this is retroactive for last year, my first question is, why are managers getting paid extra time? I think we're setting a precedence here. I'm not sure what the description is for Mrs. Walker under, I believe she's a special ed director, correct?
Special education coordinator.
Coordinator, okay. So, if this is additional work, my first question is, how much is the workability grant?
$30,000 per year.
So if I did the math correctly, this is about a, I
12,170.
can't remember what I do at night. I was looking at this last night doing my homework.
I have the figure, 12,170. Yes.
So half of the money that we're getting is going to a manager to do the grant. So how much is, I don't even know what we do with the workability grant as a board member, but I think that would be I'd like to know, what do we do with the remaining amount of money, which doesn't seem to be significant, and what was our practice in the past? Because I went back and looked at last year, and so I was glad to hear that this is for last year, because I did not see us paying anyone in years prior to do this type of work. So why are we doing this now? What's changed? Has the amount gone bigger or smaller? And what are we doing with it? And why isn't this just part of someone's job under management?
So those
Because
are,
management's, they're paid to do, they're on salary, not to collect overtime.
so those are all very valid questions and good questions. I have to go backwards to go forward. In the 17-18 school year, we had a staff member who their only job was to be the workability specialist to work on 2 grants that we received from the state, a workability grant and this grant, the DOR, or the Department of Rehabilitation grant. That staff member was actually funded through the entirety through that grant. So their salary was funded through those 2 grants. Unfortunately, for the 18-19 school year, at the beginning of the school year, we were notified by the state that we lost our workability grant. And we had to then go back and try to get the Department of Rehabilitation grant. What those grants are used for is to help students receive job training. We work with employers in the community, and we provide students to work in their businesses, and they're paid through the grant. So the incentive to the employer is that they receive an employee, but they don't have to pay the wages. The wages are paid through the grant. So we lost that grant, and we had to go back and resecure it and reapply, and work very closely with the state. Probably over 100 man-hours were put into this. This was not part of Mrs. Walker's original job description because we had the other person to do that job. They since transferred out into a different position in the district, and so we were scrambling to get that covered. Mrs. Walker did an outstanding job. I provided some information to the board about our We Can Work program that was at the high school. We had over 15 students participate this year, which is one of the highest numbers. We're looking to expand it next year. And there is a provision in the grant for an administrative oversight of the program, and that is the stipend that Mrs. Walker is being compensated for the time. She more than earned it. She did a lion's share of work to get this back for our district, and the students benefited as a result. So actually, we had more students participate, and were able to resecure the grant.
And if I could just make a comment, because it isn't common practice that we're looking to pay administrators extra money or a stipend, but there are unusual and unique circumstances like this one. We've had it through the reconfiguration process to help us get the results that we're at now. We also had an assistant principal that would help us out, and that was not something that he could do through the school day, but it was on Saturdays and Sundays in order to help us. So it's not a common practice, but
No, it's not.
every once in a while there's been a time where we need to compensate somebody for doing something that is a little bit unique or out of the ordinary.
And can I say one more thing, please?
Sure.
And this was for the 18-19 school year. However, for the 19-20 school year, we are looking at revamping it and working with our certificated staff at the high school. I mentioned in my slides on the presentation that we have both a prime program and our transition program, working with our teacher there and making that part of the grant an actual R factor with the schedule. For example, if you have 0 to 5 students working, they get an R factor of this amount. If we have 5 to 10 students working, they receive an R factor of this amount. So for the 19-20 school year, that is the plan for that portion of the grant.
Right. So just to be clear, so this is something that was in place or an arrangement was made for last year. And so going forward, this is not going to happen again, where you're saying that you've made other arrangements. Is that what you're saying?
So I'm
next
looking,
year?
yes, what I'm looking to do, so I want to make sure we have the full picture. I'm looking to fill that position that was vacated by staff previously, that position that we always had, the workability specialist. So that will be a clerical person and a staff person to be able to manage these programs throughout the year. And then for the other portion, working on looking at an R factor for our certificated staff who does who administers and manages the transition program. So this is, as Dr. Brege was saying, kind of a one-time anomaly.
Okay.
Ms. Marcus, did you have a question on this report?
Well, I wanted to make a comment, and I just forgot about I had gone through the U.S. Bank warrants, and I just want to make a comment that I found this to be a little bit high, considering it was for the 1 month.
That's a different item.
This is a different item.
It's a different item.
On the item ahead of us, right?
Yeah, with the, you're on the warrant report?
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
save your
Okay, we're not,
Hold on. We have to vote
Um,
on this. and then we can move on.
Okay, I'm sorry, okay.
no, nobody pulled the warrant.
Mr.
Okay.
Margot, I had a question on the same,
On the- On,
on the
On
same.
B1?
On B1.
okay, go ahead, Mr. Spitz.
The board is asked in this report to approve a job title change and job description change for Rebecca Starkins.
That's classified, I think.
That's B2.
Oh, that's B2. I'm sorry.
I had pulled B2.
Okay, so if
Sorry.
there's nothing else on B1,
No.
all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Now we will go to B2.
They're bringing that one, right?
They're going to, yes,
Yes, we will. We'll bring back the correction.
Dr. Beggy wrote it down.
Yep.
It's here.
We're not approving that. Did you
That's
want to say
where I-
that in the record? We're not approving.
They're going to, no, tonight was for 1819.
The correct one.
Sorry, tonight was the correct one, so we have to bring back the, from last week and nullify that.
Okay, so.
The item tonight had nothing to do with last week's error.
So I would like that to be entered into the record, that we're expecting, the board is expecting to nullify that with a correction for the next board meeting, if everyone agrees.
Yeah, that's fine. It's from the
Thank you.
June 15th meeting on the certificated report. So specifically, if I closed it, otherwise I can find the line item for you. Okay, can I get a motion for B2, please?
No.
I'll make a motion to approve classified personnel report, item 9B2.
Second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Walker-Schuman and Mrs. Marcus. Mr. Spitz, you had a question on this one?
This is the one you want to question.
My question was with regard to the board being asked to approve a title change and job description change for Rebecca Starkins. My only concern is that I think none of us have had an opportunity to read the proposed job description. So if we're asked to approve something that we haven't read, I think it would be better if we could defer that item until the next meeting so that we can know what we're voting on.
If I may just add, I brought my folder with me. I brought as much as I could, Dr. Breggy, and I don't see it in there. And so I did not realize that it was in our folders. But
Okay.
if it was, it wasn't in my folder. I have all my stuff here.
Okay.
So I'd like to see it as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will make the suggestion that somebody would need to pull the line 39 through 48 from the consent calendar and table that item. And then we can bring it back after you satisfactorily have read the item. But that's how you would want to handle this on a logistical level. So it's the specifics are line, I'm sorry, 39 to 48.
I move we remove line 39 to 40.
48. Did you say 48?
Did you say
48, 39 to 48.
39 to 48?
From what?
Under the classified,
Personnel report.
Okay, so you're making a motion to approve the report minus the items 39 to 48?
right, yes.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item M. Yeah, I think you
Okay, is that PBIS?
Yeah, I need a motion, please,
I'll
for
make a
discussion.
motion to, let's see here. Actually, somebody else make the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with LACO for the positive behavior interventions and support PBIS.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mrs. Hacker, your question?
Yes. So I went back and looked, and it occurs to me that we, the board, in December of last year, approved a PBIS contract with California Technical Assistance Center for $39,000. The actual date of the contract was September 21st. It wasn't brought to the board until later. But in here, there's a lot of language, and I printed it for Tier 1, Tier 2, and there was a schedule. A lot of it looks very similar to what's being proposed this time around. So and this would have concluded just in June. So my question is, why are we, it seems like there is a duplication of effort here with this contract. What is the difference, if any, is my first question. And, we also paid extra time for the PBIS coordinator, $10,000, or to the amount of $10,000 to do extra work for PBIS. So what are we getting for our money? What kind of schedule has been provided to actually implement PBIS in some way or form? I have not seen that. People have asked, when is PBIS coming? When is PBIS coming? So it's just, I'm not really sure what we're supposed to be expecting. But with the first set of training that has already occurred for $39,000, and it would have just ended this June, we're now only in July, and we're starting a new contract for, again, much of the same language that was promised to be achieved through California Technical Assistance Center. Why another contract? And when do we stop training and really just implement?
Okay, so we have multiple questions. The first question is, what is the difference, I believe? It is a different provider, a different trainer. This is based on feedback from our staff and our site teams. We worked with Caltech for the 18-19 school year. There were, I believe, 4 to 5 different meetings at the district office with the site teams, laying the groundwork, doing things such as establishing the expected behaviors for each school site. But based on our needs in Beverly Hills Unified School District, we felt that Caltech was not able to support both our site teams and our district team in the implementation of PBIS to the level that we needed. So we sought out a new provider, and we were able to locate and have conversations with LACO and understand what their level of support would be. And so we are actually looking to change providers, and they have a much more in-depth program with support for our sites and our district team. So it's actually less expensive because the Caltech team was more expensive, as you said, at $39,000. The contract for LACO, I believe, is around $15,000, so about less than half of the cost that we did last year. And again, I want to re-emphasize this. This was also based on feedback from our staff, based on the trainers that came to us from Caltech. I know that one of your other questions was about implementation. We are at the ground level implementation. We have to make sure that we have the foundation secure, because if we rush to implement, it will not be successful. So we have to make sure our site teams are trained and that they have the foundation to be able to implement. We will begin our rollout at the middle school for the 1920 school year. And I'm sorry, I forgot the rest of your questions.
So here's what's really confusing to me. Okay, so this contract with California Technical Assistance Center was brought to the board sometime after November of last year, which would have just been, short of 8 months. And but the contract that you all entered at some point was at the end of September. So maybe you were just entering into a contract, but the actual work did not take place until after. You would have just concluded this in June. So already you're saying that that our site teams really kind of wanted to go a different route. And so my question is, we had a PBIS coordinator hired, I think last year. We had PBIS extra work assigned to the coordinator so that she can implement.
No, that stipend was for something different. As I explained to the board when it came, I rearranged these assignments between the PBIS coordinator and our student services coordinator, and I moved discipline from the student services coordinator to the PBIS coordinator, and that was not part of the job description for the 18-19 school year. So that was what that stipend covered. But going forward for the 19-20 school year, it's already been explained to the PBIS coordinator that will be part of their role as well. The rationale behind that is that discipline and our PBIS program go hand in hand. So we need to have the same person monitoring it and facing with the site teams and the site administration to make sure that our policies and our implementation and the way that we are administering discipline is along the lines of what we're doing with Pbis.
So where are you in the tier training? I mean, I see that the new contract is very much about tier 1. And
We're at the base level, tier 1.
right.
Tier 1.
So
We're
did
still
we gain
building.
anything with the prior contract?
We did. We did. We gained a lot of insight and knowledge, and we were able to work with our teams and start to build as I discussed, things such as the expected school-wide behaviors. But of course, we will have to come back in and reaffirm that because some of the teams have changed based on reconfiguration. Our last meeting for the 18-19 school year did have the new teams based on reconfiguration.
How many activities actually took place aside from training?
We
that we
are in
delivered?
the training phase. When you say activities, what do you mean?
What did you deliver? What actual curriculum was delivered in some way or shape or form to students, or
We're not ready to deliver
So
curriculum
if
to
we're
students.
not ready to deliver, then how do we know? So I'm just kind of wondering, like you went from one contractor to another in less than 6 months, and you just finished. So what is it that went so wrong, or how do we know that it's not going to work for the training that we received?
How do we know
That this
the
is not
implementation
At
that's
Caltech.
we know just based on how the feedback from our staff when we had the trainings on the 4 or 5 days that we had throughout.
How was this
school
elected
year.
then? How is it that we winded up having? Who brought it to the table?
A couple of different, one of the consultants that we work with, that we were looking at some of our data through California Department of Education, had worked with them in a couple of different districts. And basically there are only 2 to 3 providers throughout the whole state of California that support districts in PBIS implementation. So Caltech is one, and the Lake County is another one.
And one thing we have talked about, that it's a multiple year rollout. This is, PBIS is ingrained into every employee. Everybody has a part in PBIS, no matter what your position is in the school district. So we've been planning on multiple year rollout and training for PBIS.
Okay, any other questions on that item? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I oppose.
Okay, thank you very much. Motion carries 4-1. Okay, item N.
Yes.
Can I get a motion, please?
Make a motion for approval of professional services agreement with Total Recall Captioning.
Second.
Okay, thank you very much. Who had the question on this one?
I did.
Thank you, go ahead.
It's the Total Recall Captioning. Oh. So my question is, $51,000 is a pretty significant commitment for this particular type of service. It's more than what private school tuition would be for a year. So, and I read the response from the questions that were asked, but I guess my question is, why are we doing this now? If we haven't done this in the past and we're looking at other options that are more cost effective, why are we being asked now to fulfill this?
Because when the IEP team met for the student at the end of the school year, this particular technology is called CART, and it is very expensive because you actually have a live person basically transcribing what is being said in the classroom, so it is very expensive. But it is what the IEP team determined was necessary in order for the student to access their program. So we have to provide that service. Once it is vetted and gone through the IEP process, because we are responsible for providing free and appropriate public education to our students with IEPs, and this particular student, this is the route that they need to receive the information in the classroom based on their disability, which is a hearing impairment.
Okay, so in all of the other districts, in Southern California, they hire someone to be basically like a court reporter in the classroom in order to deliver this if they have a student with this particular challenge?
If they have a student with an auditory hearing loss, and it is determined through the IEP process that is the best way of providing instructional support for the student, yes.
And so at this time, there's no alternatives other than having a human sit and type?
Not right now. We're working with the team and the family to research other ones, but at this point, we would be in jeopardy of not providing FAPE if we did not provide this. And this was also, just so you know, as part of the IEP team, we had our SELPA district, our SELPA hearing DHH specialist there. So that's her specialty. She knows all the different technologies, and she was also part of the team that recommended this. So the different options were discussed at the IP meeting without divulging any confidentiality, but in order to support this student based on their disability, yes, this was the technology that the student needed.
I was going to ask that question about the SELPA, if was there.
Yes,
Uh,
they participated
what-
in the assessment and the
Just-
IEP meeting.
Well, just out of curiosity, if this is, can this be for the second semester too? Will we have to, are we hoping that we don't?
Yes,
know?
ma'am, it can be, and this is why sometimes our special education costs are high, because by law, we have to provide what the student needs, and it's individualized. But through the IEP process and by trial and error, that's why we only allowed it for the first semester, because we're going to come back and say, how did this work? Where's the data? How's the student progressing? And can we do something different?
So this 51,000 is not for the whole year, it's only for
No,
one
ma'am,
semester?
first semester.
With all of this speech to text technology that
Same
we have in our
question.
phones and use this
Yes.
all the time, I find it hard to believe that there's no other solution out there. So I would encourage everyone to keep looking for this. I mean,
But here's the thing, this is where it gets a little in the gray area, and I'm sorry, Mrs. Walker, I didn't mean to cut you off. We cannot, those things are more student-driven. We cannot require the student to do that. We, as the district, have to provide it to them in a manner that even if they're unable to, because again, we're dealing with a student with a hearing loss. What if they're not looking and someone's talking and they miss something and they haven't turned it on? So we have an affirmative obligation under the law to make sure that we are providing the service to support the student to access their education at all times. So CART has historically been one of, and that's what this service is called, has been one of the most expensive type services, and districts have gone rounds and rounds at administrative hearing and federal hearing about these because it is so expensive. But I can assure you, not providing it, and it's needed, will be much more expensive.
I'm not saying not providing it, I'm just questioning, are there other options?
We're going to continue to explore those and discuss those, but right now, no. And it was discussed, and other options were looked at and discussed in the IEP meeting, but this is what the team, including the deaf and hard of hearing specialists from the SELPA, recommended.
Okay.
On that, the Exhibit B in the contract actually says it's a not to exceed 51,000 for the
Right.
1920 school year, not for the first semester.
But we only wrote it into the IEP for the first semester. And
I
then,
understand, I'm just,
so the IEP will trump the contract, because if we come back and say we don't need it, this is also, you have to remember, there's a physical side and a fiscal side and a program side. That's the physical side, my staff not wanting to have to come back and ask for something, but the program side is the IEP. Right now, that's only written in the IEP through first semester. We're going to try to get it off and not have that.
not have it
cost
for the
occur.
second semester.
Yes.
If it's needed the second semester, you have ground cover by this being a 1920 contract.
Yes.
I just wanted to be clear about that.
Yes.
So it's a not to exceed, and
Right.
that if
But
you.
we're trying to
and if
make
you
it
come-
less.
No, I appreciate
Yes.
that. I'm just saying that if it does wind up in the second semester, then this
We
is,
have
this is a
coverage.
fixed amount and a fixed contract. You'd have
Yes.
to come back with an amendment.
Right, and this is done for budgeting purposes, and so that we have a line item, and when we're asked what our costs are, we are able to go in and plug that in and have a real-time figure.
And I'm guessing that we don't have a lot of students who require this need on an
No.
annual basis. This is a rare, kind of an outlier for
That is
our
a very
special
good
ed
question,
program.
President Margot, and that's why it's called a low-incidence disability,
Okay.
because it happens, maybe 9 out of 100 kids, or 9 out of over 200 kids, sometimes at birth.
And
or
would
along.
students such as this one normally be in an MPS or something, or not in
No.
public schools? They it just
It depends on the student.
Okay.
This particular student, other than having a hearing loss, is actually an advanced student.
okay.
So that placement would not be appropriate for them. One more thing I wanted to say, and I just thought about what I responded to in the questions. We also have a fund at SELPA, a low incidence fund, and we're also going to send this to the SELPA Low Incidence Committee and ask for them to subsidize this cost. So some of that cost may come back to the district as well.
Thank you for sharing that.
I just want to point out that for one semester at that rate, it's $566 a day. I would really be interested, even for a court reporter, to find out what the cost for 7 hours of work would be per day. I don't know
And
that it
so,
would
and so,
be
you know, we're
right.
doing everything to try to minimize the cost. For example, we're looking at the student schedule, the classes that they need the CART support in, we're trying to clump them. So may it be periods 1 through 5 or 2 through 6, so that we're not paying someone to wait around while the student is not in an academic class. So all
Thank you.
efforts are being made to conserve
Thank you.
resources.
All right.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion N carries. Moving on to Q. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll move approval of BSN Sports Reports Program.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I ask that this be pulled.
Go ahead, Mr. Spitz.
Because I want to be sure that all stakeholders, all the district stakeholders are aware that this agreement does not restrict or limit purchases from any vendor other than BSN Sports. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that. I'm in favor of it, but I wanted to
That
make
is correct.
clear.
Good. Stated, verified. Thank you very much for bringing that up and clarifying any, I would say, possible confusion out there, but most likely confusion on these things.
The other thing that are we going around, or we're going to have presentation? Are they presenting?
Is it? No.
Are you
no,
presenting?
No,
they're
that was
doing
just
something-
provided-
They're doing something else.
FYI.
Oh, okay, okay. The other thing is that my understanding is that if we don't reach the $50,000 threshold, then we don't really accumulate points towards any particular, I guess, rewards, if you would.
Right.
Correct? So I guess we have to try, there's an incentive to reach that minimum number, right? $50,000, is that correct? Great, thank you.
Yes. You can come down to the microphone, Mr. Ellis. Thank you.
Green? With BSN, anything that you purchase through BSN goes to that cumulative total. So
Right. So if we're not talking about just gear or uniforms or, what is it? Equipment, though, we would still be bidding for the best price? This
We-
would
we're
not
go-
be an incentive for us to just lock in ourselves with BSN, right?
yes,
Okay. So I want to make sure that we're still going through the bidding process,
absolutely.
always, and that we're not just trying to accumulate points for the sake of just doing good with this rewards program.
No, we're going to do our due diligence
Great.
and get the best cost that we can.
Thank you.
And I also just want to add that they're aware of what, our practices are about going out for bid. So if they don't offer us the best price in a certain area, then they know that, we're going to go out and we're going to go with the lower bidder.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item V.
That was mine too.
Okay.
I'll make a motion for approval of award of RFP number 1920 PUR 004 for crossing guard services.
I'll second.
So, my question on this was that in prior conversations with, I believe Terry Tao, who's unfortunately not here, it's been explained to us that the crossing guards, the cost of the crossing guards is actually supposed to be borne by the city in which they're employed. So for $327,000, I'm not sure why we're stepping in here. That's an awfully big price tag. And that certainly could go a long way in the district for other uses if it's required or in the law that the city is supposed to be carrying that burden.
So I'm currently working with Mr. Tao on, that assumption. But we also want to make sure that we have crossing guards that are ready day one. So, but it is something that, in fact, just today, there was email exchange with Mr. Tao and myself, and getting clarification on some of the terminology and the liability piece about when students step off of school property. So that's all happening at this current time. And so within the next week or so, we know that we'll be reaching out to the city.
So would it not be worthwhile to table this until we actually have some kind of agreement or negotiation with the city? Or are we just saying we're going to pay it and hope that we can recapture some of the expense? It's an awfully big one.
We can do either. I just want to make sure that, that
due to, any upcoming or unforeseen technicalities that we have them ready day one. So by approving this today, there has been nothing that's been exchanged other than the board approving the measure to be paid, but there hasn't been any payment made at this time.
Do you know if, has Terry given you any direction in terms of by agreeing to this, does it put us on the hook so that the city can say, well, you agreed to pay for it already, we're not stepping in? Does it preclude any kind of negotiation
He did not mention that. He did not mention that, but there's some gray area to crossing guards, and so that's why it's not a situation that after going through the legislation that's been passed, it isn't something that's so clear. We do believe that we're within our right to have that when students step onto the city property, that the city is in charge of the safety of our students and our community.
What was the practice?
Just to follow up, in past years, has the contract been with the district or with the city?
That was my question.
Because if this is something new, and the contract's going to be with the district,
Yeah.
the city could, I could see the city saying, we don't have any part of this. So I'm concerned about entering into a contract when we haven't before, if the contract's been with the city in the past.
Right. That was my question. Like, what has been our practice? What was our practice last year?
We've always voted on this contract, that I can tell you.
Yes.
Ever since I've been here. We
the
voted
city
on
paid
it. What?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And it's been, I think it's part of the arrangement with the city, inside or outside of the JPA, that we get reimbursed half the cost, 50%.
That's true.
That's part of the agreement.
Yes.
What I'm curious about is the number that is listed in here is high above the number we usually contract for. And I'm curious, it's usually a quarter, it's 250,000 in past. So I'm wondering because it's, I think, 500 total and we split that. So I'm just wondering, I'd like to be clear on if this is an increase of 250 or decrease from the 5.
We can bring that information
That's-
back to you because
yeah.
I don't have that readily available, but I would like to present to you last year's information as well.
Great.
Yeah.
So should we
Th-
take
there- Yeah,
Should we table this until
it's always, you always want to build in a little bit of an increase, but I can present that.
But do we,
to you.
And we also talked about.
do we need to have a contract? When, our next meeting isn't for what?
Our next regular
August
meeting is
13th.
actually August 13th. We do need to have a contract
We
in
need to have a
place.
contract before then.
So we
Yes.
need to have another meeting before that.
Well, we're going to have another meeting
We
anyway.
just talked about that, so we'll be setting up another meeting anyway.
So should we table this for the next meeting?
Are you comfortable tabling this until next week?
I mean, I think so. I mean, I can, if we're going to be meeting next week, I'll know that I will have some final information from Mr. Tao and also have last year's contract as well to review.
Right, so
And some kind of a verbal commitment from the city?
Or or to see if we got reimbursed.
Well, we have, and it is through the JPA. And
Right.
so, and I believe it was half and not, I don't expect for you to know that, Mr. Roach, but I believe it's that they pay they've paid in the past 50%. And now we believe that, that the city should be reimbursing us for the total cost.
Okay,
Okay,
so,
so why don't we do this? Why don't we pull this tonight and we'll get it back on next week's agenda? And to make sure that it's voted on before school starts, but we'll get these questions clarified, because, it's not $50 here we're talking about,
Right.
so.
significant.
And this is, and just in my recollection, this is a way larger number than I ever remember. And we talked about actually reducing guards, because we have one site less, or at least reallocating existing guards to different streets, but not increasing.
Okay.
So this increase is, even if it's related to wage increases, it's way more than it should be.
We didn't add any crossing guards either.
No, not that I know of.
Same.
Okay, so we have to withdraw your motion. Who made the motion?
I did. I withdraw my motion.
And I withdraw my second.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. Mrs. Marcus, I know you had a comment on an item that we already voted on, but I'm going to allow you, since we're finished with the consent items, I'm going to allow you to just step a little bit out of order and ask your question or make your comment, but we did already vote on the
I
item.
know, I can
Okay.
make it at the end if you want.
You can make it right now. We're talking
Okay,
about consent.
I just wanted to make a comment. I was going to make the comment, and I totally missed it. The amount of money that was on the credit card for this week, that was reported, and I did ask to see the backup for it, because I can't believe that 86,000 some odd dollars was spent on a credit card this past month. I found that a little bit steep, and I would love to be able, and I think I asked for Mr. Roach to make that possible for me, to see the backup on that. I would love to see that if possible. I just thought it was outrageous.
No, we're happy to provide that for you. I think you've been working on getting that all together, so if you just want to let us know when you want to come in, we're happy to show you that backup
Not
information.
quite used to all the rules of things here, of what goes on, so
Yep.
I'm getting there.
If you just want to contact me, and we'll set up something so that you can come in and see the backup
Okay,
information.
anybody want to go with me, they can.
Or can you just make it available to all of us? Would that be easier? Not the backup, I guess it's, well, is this
Only-
the credit card statement or is this backup? If that's
It's
different.
it's the backup, and
It's the
so
back- okay,
so in fact, I'd rather you kind of look at that in person instead of sending that out via
Yeah, I
email.
would come-
and-
I will make it.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to come in too, because I'd like to see that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you can just have it available. Let us know when it's available. People can come in and look at it.
We will have that available through Mrs. Kraushauer.
Great.
Great.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that concludes our consent calendar. Thank you, colleagues. Moving on to reports. Dr. Breggy.
Okay, and Ms. Starkins is going to help me with this, and Josh, we have a brief presentation. Thank you. So as we were looking and talking about reconfiguration, and something that Mr. Margot had just pointed out as well, the district has undergone a lot of change, and it's really exciting change. And it's fun to also get feedback from other people as they begin to see some of the growth in our school district. And as Mr. Margot had mentioned, that when school starts, it's not because reconfiguration ends. It's at that point, we're just beginning. And a couple of questions that I raised, nearly 2.5 years ago with reconfiguration is how much change is too much change? And we want to be more than just a system of schools, that we want to be a school system. And so all of these exciting changes are happening with reconfiguration, as well as modernization and construction, our work with Metro, the oil well project. We had just finished contract negotiations, and this takes a great toll on our community, our students, our staff, certainly our board members, and just overall community. And so as we go through this much change, which can say without any hesitation that it is probably the most change of any school district that I know of in the country, that it's important that we remain a unified school district. So I ask that you just open your mind. This is not going to be a single item. It's not spirit wear. It's more spirit program for each of our schools in our district office. And so this is kind of the next step, as Mr. Margot had illustrated and set up quite nicely. As we begin reconfiguration, what are those next steps going to be? So you have a presentation in front of you. We will make sure that this gets uploaded to the website. These are some of the things we're going to briefly cover. Everything from the reconfiguration to the importance of being a unified school district, some information from our students, from the journalism class and highlights, the power of school spirit, some of the risks, remaining a unified school district, where we are now, where we see ourselves, how we can catch up, and some of the options ahead. And it's pretty exciting. this is a very good way to start looking at improving the overall culture and climate of our school district and each individual school. So the first thing is I just mentioned about reconfiguration. Many positive outcomes are coming. We're very excited about them. It's really important to remember that as we are progressing, and whether it's construction or reconfiguration, new elective classes, that through all of this change, it's oftentimes at the expense of the students that are currently going through our schools. And so it's important that we know, as these changes take place, that we keep the culture and climate and how proud we are of our school district right in our front eyes. So we've talked about the construction. We are going to talk to you a little bit tonight about launching a school spirit program. And again, this is going to be at the district level and each school level, and it also incorporates working with a style guide and also with our community. That's you.
Thank you. So, as we know, in every organisation and especially in a school district, unity is critical. It's part of our name, Beverly Hills Unified School District, and we believe that having a really positive school spirit improves every student's commitment to education. It creates a more positive learning environment. There is research to also show that it can act as a deterrent to negative behaviour. It can help improve athletic performance when a school spirit is up and morale is up, and that goes from students all the way through to teachers and staff throughout the district. It also goes further into the community, and for us that's the wider community of Beverly Hills. I've written a point here about the fact that it's more than just pom-poms and pep rallies. It's the idea that you're working towards a common goal. So the idea that, for example, if you're at a game and you're all cheering for the same team, that all of a sudden the strangers around you feel like family and you're high-fiving them and cheering and smiling at them because you're all working towards the same goal of wanting your team to win. And so we really want to impart to you the importance of this unity within our school district and ensuring that throughout reconfiguration and construction and the other areas that Dr. Breggy has mentioned, that we are engaging these simple actions that perhaps we are a little bit behind on with where other districts are at, and that we are forming that common bond between all of our students, but the teachers, the faculty, as I said, the community, and also you as the board leading us through this.
So over 7 months ago, this is a real article that was in highlights from a student who began to just talk about how there's something, it's like fatigue. Students going through multiple years of construction, multiple years of being in portable classrooms. And so even some of our own students from 7 months ago start talking about the culture and climate of the school district. And they often say, well, it may look like they're struggling in this area because of a lot of the changes and not feeling that connectedness. They are saying, and I think this is important, it's there. The spirit is there, the pride is there. And you can see that even Mr. Mead says it just looks different now. So the student goes on to talk about how important it is for the particular student. This is at the bottom, another article from almost a year before about understanding, about being active, and about seeing how important it is to be part of activities and how school spirit redefines their perspective on being involved in our school district. So this is just, these are a couple graphs, and this may be insignificant to some, but I'm hoping that the people in this room seem to have a really good pulse of what's happening throughout our school district. And so while there were 107 students that answered the school about school spirit stats, we don't want to dismiss even 107 students thinking that, there needs to be improvement. And we can't just forget about how important that is to our students.
So as I touched on before, there are many, many studies that indicate the performance of students academically, socially, and their civil engagement within the classroom, in the playground areas, and within their life generally, that they are happier in general when there's a lot more school spirit present in that school, whether that's a mascot or a logo, their school colours, or that they're really sure of the values on which that school is built on. They have an identity. They have something that they can hold true to themselves. They have a feeling of ownership and belonging as a student to that school, and they feel proud to be a part of that community. So updating and refreshing this presence within our school district, each individual school and the district itself, could create a really long-lasting legacy. It's something that as alumni people take through when they go to university or to college here. And we believe that creating this school spirit program holistically, from logos to a style guide to the values and the mission that this district is built on, is really critical to fostering that relationship throughout the community and immediately with our student engagement, which we believe is absolutely critical.
So Rebecca just talked a little bit about like a style guide, and I just want you to look at, when we look at style, it's a particular way that something is done, whether it's created or how it's performed, a particular form or design of something. Style guides are not new. They've been around for decades, and they're like road signs. It's the best way to look at it. They tell you, they're very clear, they're direct. They tell you what's ahead. They tell you, this is the example of a stop sign. Before you actually even read the word, you know what to do. It provides for what lies ahead. And our style guide in our school district should be that set of the rules of the road. It isn't just spiritware. It is areas like newsletters, division head emails, brochures, flyers, press releases. Some of our schools and teams are using logos from really anywhere they can find them. We have individual staff members that are creating their own logos. They're all over the place. They're all over the internet. And by using these, I don't think that people understand that there's possible infringement. It certainly isn't purposeful, but people are using different colors, different logos. They're making up their own mascot to get creative. And what's happening is it's really starting to get out there and change our brand.
So here are just a few of the examples that I found when I was doing some research. Dr. Breggy asked me to pull up a few inconsistencies that we have in the district, and so I went through different newsletters and things that I've come across in my time here at the district, and as you can see, it is quite extensive, the range that we have, and something I would really ask the board to look at. Are we being consistent in the way we're representing each of our schools? Is the logo telling the story of that school, especially now that we have a middle school? Does that have a more elementary feel? Has it progressed in any way? Are we being consistent with our colours? I think that it's important to look at all the variations with the mascots and the unique identity that brings to each school. I've just passed out some style guides examples for you from LAUSD to an actual style guide that was produced for the high school. So you've got about 7 different style guides there between you to have a look at, just for some examples. It's making its way around. Great. So from the fonts to the colours to having capitalisation in the right places, these minor areas are actually really, really important when you're communicating to your community, to your students and to your staff. It's about it's about creating clearer communication and letting individual voices speak, but also the most important part of this and I think of any organisation, is that we have a unified voice. We have one voice. We have a way of speaking that when people read that information, they know this has come from the district or this has come from this school. So following those guidelines, which unfortunately we don't have for our district, will allow the parents, the staff, the students, the administrators, anyone who is reading it, especially the wider community, to help recognise and respect what we're doing and engage them further. This next slide is just a really simple way of communicating the point that I'm making when I had, I would say, 8 or 9 different teachers send me emails last school year saying, what colour do we use for the high school, Rebecca? Which shade of orange is it? And when I look at the swim gym and I see there are already 3 different shades of orange just in the logo there, you can see there are also 3 different fonts, or 4 if you count the Norman sign as well. I think it's confusing for people to know what exactly am I using and how do I move on from here.
We've had some discussions just recently around vision, mission, mottos, slogans, and so we're lacking some consistency, and there's some good work out there. Our staff has done some great things. We love Today Well Lived, and and that's great vision. But it doesn't. There's a lack of consistency even on our own part when we come up with Education Reimagined or One District, One Mission. The LEG people that we worked with, the consultants, did some work with our staff. We are still in progress with our board to look at the mission and vision and to make those revisions. The board, I thought, had a great idea as far as incorporating Thomas's, as the new student board members, his thoughts into our vision and our mission, which he has done, and we can share that with you. There's some of the information right there. And it's my recommendation that we get together again soon so that we can we can finalize this information. There's nothing more than what I would like on the 9th of August, which is coming up pretty quickly, is to share that mission and vision with our entire school community. So I know time is tight, certainly for all of us, but it would be great to get us all into the room and maybe with some of our principals as well, and to provide this information. It'd be great to have this on opening day.
These are some examples from a district level. So sometimes we can get stuck in each individual school and how they look different, but I think it's very important for us to take a step back and look at the way we are moving as a district as a whole. Now, the stars are very representative of excellence and the different colours of each of our schools and including all of them. But as you can see, this logo has morphed and changed itself, and other people have participated in that to make it appropriate depending on whether you have a dark background or a light background, but it does create inconsistency. And we have touch points with this brand, with this school district every single day. So we can tell that that's all the same brand, that's all the same school district, that's all the same colours and stars and words. But for someone who isn't familiar with that, it actually subconsciously could appear as all different organisations if they just saw it fleetingly once or twice, if they were moving across country or from a different area of California. And I think it's very important that we look at what is the positioning that we want to put out into the world as a district, and what are the fonts that we want to use, the colours, the background, the shapes. I think these are all areas as a district, not just as each school, but that we want to get right and get it unified is the best word, as it says in our name.
So the impact of a lot of past decisions are certainly our board, our staff, students, alumni, PTA, our ASB at the high school, just the wider community. And so the purpose of our presentation to you tonight is to let you know that we have a long road ahead of us. But this is the direction we feel we need to go in order to remain a unified school district and to pull our school district together and lift that spirit that encompasses who we are as BHUSD. And so some of the next steps for us, and we will be happy to share with the board as we move along, is creating a style guide for our district and each school. And you'll be happy to know that it's not, again, a new idea. Several of our schools have already started working on style guides and actually have come a long way. We need to ensure that there is a unified vision and mission, and it would be great if we had that from day one. We want to ensure we have a library of assets. We don't want to make the decisions that restricts our PTAs or our staff. We want to have a library of these assets so that they could be selected by whichever audience is using it, as long as they're approved and they're through our style guide. So it's more of a unified look. We can leverage this process through the power of our school brand. And so as reconfiguration begins in just under 3 weeks, we believe that this is the best next steps in order to ensure that the school spirit program gets lifted from where it is right now. So as I mentioned, it's not just spiritware. I mean, it's everything. It's the advertising, banners, booklets. I won't read them all to you, but the promotional items, presentations, the newsletters, even if it's one of our teachers that's sending out communication to parents, invitations, all of that would be easily followed in a style guide. And what I have found in my experience is many people want to do the right thing. They just don't know where to look for it. And so a style guide easily provides that information. And if we were running from closed session, I actually wanted to show you some examples of some spiritware that have the different shades of green at Beverly Vista. And it's that simple, but yet it's that polish that we're looking for. So we're a little bit behind the curve, and we have some work to do, although our schools have already started to jump into this area. But there's some inconsistency that could easily be fixed through the school spirit program. You might have noticed already with our website that Ms. Starkins has already started to go through our website and brighten that up. And just that example alone, you can see how much brighter the pictures are. I will say that there were actually pictures on our website that were not pictures of our school or our campus. And so it's small things like that to even bigger things that will make all the difference in the world. So there's no expectation or standard for employees to follow. And what we're doing through this type of process is just putting together a guide. As I mentioned, most people want to do the right thing. And if they're directed into an area where there's going to be lots of input from staff and the community on how these are put together, that this will be very beneficial for our school district as we move on through the change in reconfiguration and all the other things that we're doing. So I talked about the websites a little bit, connecting with our community. It is the public face of our schools. The recruitment, when people are looking to move into the area, they immediately look to our website. They can do it from their phone. They can do it from any place before even thinking about moving. It is important to ensure that we have familiarized ourselves with a brand, a logo, the right colors. It is a vital resource to our school district. So it's certainly not the only way. It's just one way. And there are lots of companies out there that are using our schools to make money without permission. And here's an example. That is not our school district, that Beverly Hills Norman's spiritware site, but they'll lift the name, they'll lift the logos, and that's part of the problem too, is that they'll start making their own logos.
We're getting a cease and desist on that side?
We're working on it. We just located that, so.
Yeah, this is being uncovered as I'm doing more and more research, as Dr. Brady has sort of directed me to look into this area. So options for us to catch up, and then options for us to really look ahead at being ahead of the curve. I think one of the amazing things that I love about working in this district is that good enough is not good enough. We want to be great. So in order to be good, we really need to look at bringing all of those factors that Dr. Braggy and I have talked about together. That can be done in what is currently one of three options. The first is called a Varsity Brands Impact Program, which is a preferred partnership program. The value of it, because they have a very, very, very large graphics team, is $45,000. The cost to our district would be that it's free. Now, as we know, there's no such thing as a free lunch. It comes with an agreement that's long. It would be between 3 and 5 years, depending on what is negotiated. It doesn't lock us into anything per se, but all of those details would need to be worked out. We would have the opportunity, as always, Mrs. Hacker brought it up before, that we must have 3 bids for every single project. Anything that we are purchasing, we always must collect 3 bids. In fact, to Mrs. Hacker's point, we have turned down a bid from BSN just a couple of weeks ago for PE uniforms, and my professional opinion was absolutely, because there was a better bid on the table. So it's really important that every step of the way we are doing that. This would not be in breach of that in any way. However, it would be saying that we had a preferred relationship and we gave one of those 3 bids always to the varsity brands and their subsidiaries. One of those actually is BSN Sports. It's Varsity Spirit, which is a huge cheer uniforms company. Herf Jones, I'm sure you've heard of. That is an optional element at the moment because we are currently with Jostens, and I think that it's important to honour those relationships and contracts and areas that staff have developed with those people in over a long time, long before I was here. Moving on to option number 2. I'll firstly say about option number 1, that would need to be something where the contract is looked at with legal counsel and really reflected that we are in a position where everybody wins, so to speak, but also understanding that there are a lot of other districts in California and nationwide who have this preferred partnership agreement with varsity brands. So it's definitely something that we should look at. Number 2, I'm not sure if you all got to see it, but the high school style guide that was developed last year by Greg Huntoon Graphics, that has been passed around. That would be refreshed a little bit and need to be. He has done a costing for us of about $43,000 to overhaul all of these things in terms of creating a full style guide with the assets. Interestingly, I thought that number might come in a little bit lower. However, when you look at the quality of his work against a company like Varsity Brands and other marketing firms, we're talking the difference of $2,000. It's not that much different. Now, can we negotiate and do all those things? Yes, but when I looked at other marketing firms, which is the option number 3, would be to pay it outright and not to be locked into any kind of an agreement and just own the assets ourselves. That would be $45,000 for Varsity Brands to do that. So they're the 3 options that I've laid out before you. Dr. Braggy can talk about the fun part of funding that project, which is always exciting to talk about money, especially in board meetings. This is for anyone at home watching, the style guide that was developed last year for the high school that's being refined. And then I will now move into options that would get us ahead. So I'm recognising fully that this is a lot of information. We have to crawl before we can walk. These are long-term strategies that can dovetail into the other 5-year plans that are being developed. There's a strategic plan that I know Dr. Braggy is so excited to work on once this reconfiguration project really gets off the ground. One of those things would be launching a new club, such as fans. There was one that I found in another district called Following Activities and Sports, where the club members are so excited and full of spirit about their district and their school that they go to any other club just to cheer them on and just to give them some encouragement, which I thought was a really incredible thing for them to do and created that feeling of spirit amongst everybody. The bell schedule, if you go back to the highlights article that Dr. Braggy went through recently, Mr. Mead really talked about the impact that lunchtime has on the school spirit of the school at the high school. And assessing the bell schedule is something that's not new to you. You've brought it up at numerous meetings that I've been to. And so I think looking at that may be a really good option, as we said, in the future. The final thing that I would suggest that we look at as an option to get ahead of other districts and look at how can we really not just be good but great is looking at an alumni program and looking at, are we really fostering and maintaining those relationships with our alumni, and do we have a really great database that we can lean on to ensure that they're still part of our school spirit and our schools moving forward. So that might look like a program such as Graduate, which I've mentioned up here, to maintain that and just look beyond graduation. Like I said, we've got to crawl before we can walk, but these are things that we are considering. So as you can tell, I'm so excited about this. The exciting thing about school spirit is it's contagious. There are lots of side effects. Increased attendance is a long-term side effect of boosting school spirit. They're listed there. It's much quicker for you to read them than for me to speak them to you. But I think it's important that we do look at the longevity of this program, the school spirit program, and the immediacy of the participation of each and every student within our district.
So some of our next steps are to decide on a course of action for our style guides and some of the assets. Creating a style guide and artwork assets, again, some schools have already started this. It's just reviving many of those. Something that we believe that we need to implement. And again, this is a little bit of a journey in front of us, but it's one that we'd like to take the board along with us. And just to have a study session so that we can take a deeper dive into the mission and vision, as I talked about before, as we've done some work just recently. And while that's fresh in our brain, it would be great to be able to have a session to talk about that for opening day. Any questions?
Okay, colleagues, starting down at the end.
Okay, so I 100% agree with the school spirit and how improving it with all the side effects, that is 100% true, and I do agree that it is lacking. It is lacking in the district. It does correlate with the mission and vision statement, so I think if we do a complete kind of revamp, not like, we're not going to tear everything apart, but just revamp everything, consolidate. I mean, we are a unified district, so it does make sense to unify everything. And yeah, I think that moving forward, I think we should just follow through with this. So.
Except we are actually at 3 sites. We're literally tearing everything apart. So, Mr. Spitz.
I'm impressed with the tremendous amount of thought that's gone into your work, your presentation here. And there's a few things that have come to my mind while you were making your presentation. For one of them, the statement, "What killed our spirit?" hit me hard, and I'll tell you why. I personally, I'm not an alumnus of the BHUSD, but my wife is, and her sister and brother, our children. I have a couple of cousins who are my contemporaries, and they went through the school system. I can tell you this firsthand. Now and again, I attend a reunion of my wife's high school class, for an example. And also, from time to time, I've attended, for example, meetings of the Alumni Association, the Athletic Alumni Association. My point is this. At one time, and for a very long time, there was great school spirit. Great school spirit. And if you were to attend some of these alumni parties for the different years, and they're constant every year, there's one, you would be amazed at the school spirit that those people carry. Now, for example, Mr. Margot, you're an alum.
I am.
I don't want to lose my place here, but when you were attending Beverly High, would you say that the school spirit was better than it seems to be at in the present times?
Absolutely. But a
Okay.
lot of that,
So,
well,
huh?
I'll comment later on it,
So
but
here's what here's one of the points I want to make. You've got people in town like Josh Gross, who, as you know, is the publisher of one of our newspapers. He's an alum. He's a very, very, very active alum. I guess he's president of the Athletic Association.
Yeah, it's different.
Pardon me?
Alumni Association, but not the Athletic Alumni Association.
Okay. Going back some time ago, I think there were two alumni associations, and there seemed to be some clash there that was, I think, very unfortunate. But that's another point. The point that I want to make is this. I think it would be, you mentioned in here, you brought up alumni, but I think that it might be very helpful to contact somebody like Josh Gross and have him put together a committee. And he would have dozens and dozens to choose from of alumni who, when they meet, you can't believe, I mean, they graduated 50 years ago, 30, 45 years ago. They carry such spirit with them that it's amazing. And it might be that a committee of them could be very, very useful in an advisory capacity.
Absolutely.
The other thing that I just want to mention is I'm very sensitive about one thing. When you talk about keeping Beverly Hills Unified School District a unified district, there's something sensitive about that. And I hope that you understand. This school district is a unified school district, whether there's any school spirit or whether there's great school spirit. The unified means that we are a district that has elementary and high school in one district. That makes us a unified district, no matter what. So I understand the distinction that you want to make. I understand that you're looking to unity. But I am sensitive about this word unified because it's there no matter what. Anyway, I applaud you for what you've done, and I want to see it carried on.
Thank you.
Well, I'm so excited that it's my turn to say something right now. I am an alum. I was a cheerleader here. So school spirit is so deep in my blood that when we're on that Beverly Hills High School Facebook page for alumni, every post I end with, "Go Normans." It is so deeply embedded in me. And I am so happy to see this being brought forward, not only because I think it's so necessary, but I think it's so incredibly relevant to where we are right now. It's a great opportunity that we have right now to try and put our arms around the entire community, all of the students and parents and alum and grandparents and athletes and academics and teachers and staff, and make sure that they all feel a part of something. Because this has been a tough couple years. There have been a lot of divisive issues. There have been parents not happy, teachers not happy, and we have a great opportunity right now to make everyone feel like they belong. And that is what this represents, is making people feel like they belong. My background is in advertising and marketing. It's what I got my degree in. It's what I worked in for several years. And then beyond that in apparel manufacturing, which really is a lot of the same thing, developing a brand and making people feel like they have something that resonates, that attracts them to that brand. So I completely understand and support the idea of developing that for the district. I think it's incredibly important that while our number one goal of being here every single day is for our students, to educate them and to buoy them up and to create an environment where they can be successful. This is one of the ways that we can do that. This is one of the ways that we can help support the students, the teachers, the entire district in making sure that we realize the goals that we've set for ourselves. So I am super in favor of this. I commend you on a really spectacularly thoughtful presentation. I would never have drawn between, school spirit and achievement being higher. I just think school spirit's great for the sake of school spirit, but to see that it actually improves a lot of different areas of students' lives on campus is tremendous and incredibly compelling. So I totally support it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought this was an amazing presentation. I liked it a lot. I personally thought, as it was being presented, that just reconfiguring alone would not bring what you people are looking for to change the feelings that the kids have. And I think that with the middle school that we are going to be having and all of the kids being there together, and then going on to the high school together gives them an even longer time to be together so they can develop true friendships and not be split apart, but actually coming back together more. So that would, I think, do a lot in that. I also recall the kids in the middle school, when you have your 5-year or 10-year class reunions, the kids that come together, they have a special party at the reunion just for the kids from Hawthorne that graduated that year. And that feeling that those kids had was something that and I used to get invited to them either from Horace Mann or from Hawthorne or from wherever I was, El Rodeo. It just, there was something there that really made me feel good. And I haven't seen that in a long time. And I think that by the changing and the reconfiguration, we're going to come to that. And with this idea of branding and uniforms and all of this stuff, and what you put together, commendable. I look forward to seeing it in action.
Thank you.
So when we talk about school spirit, I would say, as a parent, I think that there is school spirit at the K-8s. Would you say that that's a true statement, Mr. Gubero? Would you say that people do take ownership of I just see that the students, when they do the walks or the carnivals, students want to wear their T-shirts. They want to buy T-shirts. They want to be part of whatever is going on to support their school. I think where I hear that there is a lack of is exactly what has been captured in this presentation at the high school. I think that there is a little bit of something going on there, and you've done a good job of identifying those issues. So with that in mind, I do have a question. When you look at when we're talking about school spirit, we're talking about the issues, the lack of school spirit. You're talking, I think, mostly about the high school. Is that correct? In your presentation, because it was students, the feedback that you received is mostly
not necessarily. So being around the past K-8s, you can see that there was pockets of school spirit, and then it just seemed to drift off a little bit into the middle school years, and we noticed that happening.
Okay, so for the information, though, that you collected, it's mostly from the high school perspective, correct?
Yes.
I don't think you took any sampling of younger students past ninth grade.
No. In fact, that's some work that
younger.
we would need to do. This was information that was, readily available, and it was, recent from the high school.
Okay, so are you looking for direction? Because I see three proposals, or not three proposals, but three options that you've identified?
So tonight is really about letting you know where we want to go.
So there's three options. So my question is, in particular, those three options, which one are you looking for direction from the board?
We would love to
One
get some
doesn't
direction.
one doesn't cost any money, right?
So let me go back to this slide.
Well, I think I heard Mrs.
See?
Starkin
Yep.
say that one
Mr.
did
Roach,
not.
I said, if you tell us there's money,
Right.
somebody's going to spend it. See what happens?
I think you told
I
us
actually
that-
did
About 3
I did-
hours?
I actually did include some of this in
I think
my
Ms.
budget.
Starkins was on it. I just can't recall what page.
It's 19.
19?
The
ahead.
next steps page is what we're looking for from the board, but you're right, the options of 1, 2, 3 are on page 19.
So there's one that, the top one, has has a value of $45,000, but there is no cost.
Correct.
So what is the, so are we tying ourselves to this company or what?
So, as I was alluding to before, that I do in my gut believe there's no such thing as a free lunch. So it makes me hesitant to enter something like that.
Okay.
I do also really value all of the districts that have gone into this partnership with them. I have done extensive research into VIP branding and Varsity Brands, their subsidiaries, the quality product that they produce, and the agreement that they have put forward to us does not tie us to only using them. It ties us to using them if they give us the best bid. So if they give us the fastest turnaround with the lowest price, with the highest quality, and we decide that's who we want to go with, then we do. But if there's another company, a mum and pop shop, we currently have many vendors across the district, whether that's PTAs or the district ourselves that we're engaging with. We have no obligation or requirement to use this company or their subsidiaries for each of those individual purposes.
And how would you go about releasing the library, like pieces of the library to, let's say, one of the PTAs has a better price with one of the vendors that they use, and they want it to be consistent with whatever you've adopted within that library? Would you have the flexibility of releasing logos to them, even if they wouldn't use, let's say, what is the name of this company? Impact? No.
Wouldn't matter. We don't.
Varsity Brands.
Whatever.
So we would own all of the logos. So we can
Okay.
use them on any single thing we like. I can go and give that to any company that I like to have printed on anything that we want to for the district. We own them.
Even if we haven't paid for them, like under this plan?
Yes.
Okay, that was my question. Yeah, because I don't, I understand, I really appreciate all of this, the presentation. I agree with all the comments have been made so far. The only thing I wouldn't want to create, and I'd be very cautious about, is I don't want to create a problem for like the PTAs or BHEF who are actively trying to assist and, move our the district forward and getting donations and whatnot, bringing extra additional funding for our programs. And so I don't want to create a problem where it's so incredibly difficult to produce a piece of something.
Absolutely.
That's the only thing that I would want to make sure. And I'd also like to see, where are they in all this? What has been the feedback from, I don't even know if you're there yet, but at some point I'd like to hear from them. Maybe I'm assuming you're going to come back to us with more details about what any of these options would really entail, so that we can, move forward at some point. But I'd like to hear, what the pros and cons, if any, from like the PTA presidents, and just to make sure that their voice is included in this discussion.
So part of this, may I answer you?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Part of this was to do an initial overview and bring it to the board first. I think it's really important that you guys have all the information. The minute you open the floodgates to parents, often you guys are the first to hear all the questions. What's this about? And I heard this, and can you explain this to me? And that doesn't make sense. And if you don't have the information to equip you to answer those questions, we're kind of putting you in the deep end. And so I wanted to bring this to you first with Dr. Breggy. The areas, those three options would be 100% fleshed out and full proposals that we would be bringing to you to choose from one of the three. It was to give you a snapshot of what are we even talking about here? How much are we talking? What's the gist of it? The area where we're really looking for direction from, hopefully even to take away from tonight, as Dr. Breggy put a timeline on it for opening day of the 9th, is holding that board study session. So we do want to decide on a course of action for the style guide and the assets. I think that's something that's going to take a longer time because we need to come back with that full presentation with feedback from the community, from the PTA, from BHEF, from all of those people you mentioned. But the takeaway today, hopefully, that we can maybe get some direction from you on, is whether you would be willing as a board to participate in a study session with the cabinet, with the principals, with maybe LAG. We have a few days left with their contract, I think.
We do.
That's accurate, to really nail down that vision and mission statement so that Dr. Breggy can launch that on staff opening back day and just unify that start of school spirit there. So I think that's the main area of direction that, in terms of immediacy, that would be how I would prioritize it.
So as it relates to the mission and vision of the district, I think we had a robust conversation about that. So as long as we stay within the parameters of what the board, gave direction, I'd be happy to support that. But if I'm not interested, again, in revamping the mission statement as one board member, and I think you had a board majority that was very clear on that. So I want to make sure that we're not, that we stay clear on that path. If there's disagreement, from that.
I think actually the direction that was given was if there are recommendations from staff should feel that they have the opportunity to give that feedback and make those recommendations. That's my recall.
I recall that Mr. Recupero, as it's stated here, had some suggestions for to be more inclusive, and I think we agreed to including those, but I don't beyond that, I don't agree.
No,
we can go back and check the audio file. I know that it was recorded.
What does that
and
really
Ms.
mean,
Crosshour.
Mrs. Walker? What does that really mean?
I'm fairly confident that the direction was that if staff has recommendations that they feel would be
beyond what Thomas had
beyond what
suggested,
Thomas
that they
had
should come back to
recommended,
us.
that they should come back to us with
Right.
those recommendations. Yes.
That's what the direction was.
Yep.
I don't recall that. Mr. Spitz, do you recall?
Yeah, I recall the conversation, and my recollection and what I had to say about it was that actually, if you look at our bylaws, the Board of Education, the elected 5 members of the Board of Education have the responsibility of reflecting the community's values and objectives with regard to the school district. That's our responsibility, and that's what needs to be reflected in the mission and vision statements. I had indicated, I think the board should be open to hearing suggestions from staff, from students, from
Right.
anywhere.
Yep. Right.
But in the final analysis, each of us is elected to represent the community in terms of the community's values and the community's objectives. That I believe that each of us must be true to that commitment and that responsibility.
I would agree with that.
There's
So-
also CSBA policy on things like that. And according to the CSBA pamphlet on setting direction for public schools in the community, it says, of all the responsibilities of governing boards, none is more central to the purpose of local governance than ensuring that a long-term vision is established for the school system. The vision reflects the consensus of the entire board, the superintendent and district staff, and the community as to what the students need in order to achieve their highest potential. The vision should set a clear direction for the district, a county of education, driving every aspect of the district's COE's program. So CSBA thinks that it's beyond just the board. CSBA supports that
Mrs.
this
Walker,
is a
I agreed with what
community-
Mr. Spitz said. I agreed with what he said, his recollection. That was my question
Okay, well,
initially.
we have the meeting
I agree-
recorded, so we
I
can go
agree.
back and we
I
can
don't
listen
think-
to
I
it
don't
again. The
think Mr.
direction that
Spitz
was
is
given was,
I don't think Mr. Spitz is disagreeing with what was said. I think he made it clear that we gave direction that while we all agreed on the mission statement, that we can have staff weigh in, but that doesn't mean that we're revamping our mission statement from ground
Okay.
zero.
so we'll expect staff to weigh in if they feel it's appropriate.
So, and we can provide you with that information, and we would just want to set up a time so that we can have a study session.
I said earlier today, Ms. Crosshauer will reach out and get some times and dates so we can take care of these
Great.
issues prior to the week of August 5th, hopefully.
That'd be great.
It really only gives us.
I still have some more comments, but Mr. Spitz, you wanted to say something.
Mr. Margot, just let me add to what's been said. I don't think, I think this is very important. And I agree with you. But I would hate to see the focal point of this, or the starting point of this, be revisions in our mission and vision statements. I don't think the two tie in that well.
Okay, Ms. Hecker, you had anything else?
So I agree, again, with what's been said, and it's just, I wanted to be clear about where we left that discussion. So are we all in agreement here about the mission? I don't want this to be a segue to make the mission statement the focus of what you're trying to achieve with this. I think that you started off by saying that there's school spirit lacking, that you want uniformity around logos, mottos, everything that you've enumerated in your presentation. And so I think that is important work that has to be done. I wanted to just say that when you talk about the alumni and whether or not we're capturing those opportunities, I think there's an opportunity to do something maybe with the Naviance program, and Dustin can jump in. I think as students exit our school system, we should have a little piece in there, a window where we are asking them, are you agreeing to continue to stay in contact with your district? And if so, please provide contact information for yourself and your family members, so that if there's changes to their personal information, we still have a source. I don't think we're doing that. I'm astonished as to how much Naviance can do, but we're just touching the very, very basic use of that program. And I think there's a lot of strength in that program for our district in the future. That can be, I think, a window to access some of the information that we've been lacking in the past. Additionally, I'd like to see this type of, I really appreciate the work that's been done here, but I know that the cafeteria was, there was a mention of the cafeteria and how students aren't really, they feel that by being released, I think, early during lunchtime, it's doing away with opportunity for them to be more cohesive as a group. I think that there was like a quote. It was a quote. So I would love to see a little bit of this type of work done as it relates to the cafeteria in the near future, so that we can improve the quality and the menu. And we've discussed that in the past. And I think that also would be, a move in the right direction to restoring and to,
We're definitely having those conversations right now as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate it, and I know the hour is getting late, and I'd like to wrap things up. But I will say that I do concur that if we are living by that little corner motto, education reimagined, the whole package has to be reimagined. I don't think this is something where we can start extrapolating necessarily things and say, well, we don't need to change that. Everything should at least be looked at. It doesn't mean everything needs to be changed, but I think everything needs to be examined in order to make this successful. It's a little bit kind of late in the summer to be working on this if we want it ready for the beginning of the school year, but we can do our best, and we can, say it's coming. I think, having gone through the school district, as Mr. Spitz said, and this coming Sunday, I'm actually having a small little reunion with my 1982 Beverly Vista folk. We're getting together. It's I didn't even start it. It's one of the other ones are doing it, and we're all looking forward. And there's it's exciting. People are excited to have that connection and share it. And you want your children and everybody's children to feel that way when they leave. And I think part of the problem has been this battle with ripping our schools apart and expecting everybody to behave as if they weren't ripped apart. They really are. This past year, the first graduating class that did not have use of the whole school graduated. They were the first ones after we shut down the auditorium. So they were, and there'll, I think, be 2 more classes this coming year and the year after that will have experience something closed in the school, right? There's going to be always something closed over the next couple of years. And then after 2 years or something, things will start opening up again and everybody will have use of their school. And I think that will change the dynamic of the school. The fact that kids cannot assemble, they really can't assemble, really hurts the ability for them to feel united and to feel a purpose together in supporting their school. Not every kid goes to the sports games. Not all kids can fit in the little theater, and now the Theater 40 or whatever theater, it could be the Curb Theater at this point. But it's that will change. What happened, Horseman I watched, as Horseman got finished, there seemed to be this unity and excitement about the school. And yes, our people we all tend to be a little shallow about construction, and if something is being constructed, it's just inferior, so we can't support it like we would if it was finished. We know that's not true. We know that somebody had to do something at some point and get these schools back to where they need to be physically. In fact, I think in the logo with the 5 stars, the orange and red star should have little hard hats while we're under construction, okay? And then they could be moved around and taken off as we finish buildings. It would be a nice being honest about that. Anyway, so I do look forward to continuing this conversation. It sounds like you're going to be bringing these proposals back to us. We could give direction on that, but I think it's premature because I think there's more homework to do before they come back to us. But I do appreciate the idea of getting something for value, but you're right, there is no such thing as a free lunch. So what kind of soul are we selling to what devil in order to get that? I do agree. But this is very comprehensive, and for those that take a look at this outside in the public, understand that even though this doesn't directly correlate to increased test scores, right? There's no data supporting this, as people would say. It does. It does. To generate a feeling of ownership in your school district and to have people be excited about coming here. I was talking to a recent graduate from this past year who's going to college, and she said that her senior year was like her worst year in high school. It's supposed to be her best. And it was just a tough year for her, per se. But it should never be that. People should be excited about the school they're at and excited to be part of this process and be sad when you leave. That's, I think, we have so many people more that are saying, I can't wait to get out of here. You don't want that. Trust me. It doesn't get better than this, no matter what you think. High school are your best years, right? Pre-taxes. Anyway, all right, thank you very much, everybody. Yes, Dustin.
Let me just clarify something. We do have a free lunch program here at BHUSD, in case anyone is listening. We do have free lunch. We do.
I would just like to ask one more real detailed thing. Whatever it is that comes back to us to review, I'd like to see it very specifically broken out by what it is that the deliverables are.
Okay.
What does it cover? How many schools? You know what I mean? Like, what are all the things that we get from each one of these things to make sure that we're comparing like apples to apples?
And also for example, in that contract that is free of charge, but there's a value, like what are the negatives into entering into that contract? There must be something.
We're looking into that, and also just as the board had gave direction a couple of years ago, just to make sure that legal looks at some of these contracts so that we don't put ourselves in a position that that we can't get out of.
Thank you. Okay. Fabulous. Thank you very much. Follow that, Thomas. Right. Yeah.
Forgot about that. I just want to quickly introduce myself. I will be the student board member for the 2019-2020 academic school year. I am very excited. I'm entering my senior year at Beverly Hills High School and my 13th year in the district, so I've seen a lot in the district. I'm involved in athletics here at the high school, as well as various clubs on campus. And yeah, I first wanted to just commend Dr. Breggy, his cabinet, all the staff, the teachers, and last but not least, the board members for their continued work throughout the summer to prepare for the upcoming school year, which is coming up so fast. I have seen firsthand the awesome changes that are taking place. For example, the Beverly Vista Middle School campus has undergone many updates to accommodate reconfiguration, so that's been very exciting to see. I also want to thank security. I've seen them all the time at the many hours of the day I'm at the campus for keeping all the schools safe this summer and through the school year. And I also wanted to congratulate student athletes, teachers, coaches who completed summer school and or the sports academy 3 weeks ago. Oh yeah, and before I finish, I just want to iterate a new idea that I believe will strengthen the communication between all 4 schools, kind of reflecting the discussion today. I plan to visit and or collaborate with student council or other groups on each of the 4 campuses in the district to accurately convey every student's voice. My ultimate goal is to improve the collaboration and communication between all the campuses, as well as reminding all the students of BHUSD that I'm not only the voice for the high school students, but I am the voice of every student. I want that to be clear that I am representing every student of the district. So please feel free to contact me through the website. There's a little link that you can click to email me, and I just want to say everyone to enjoy their last 3 weeks of summer. We're starting in exactly 3 weeks from today, and I hope that everyone's first day of school is as seamless as possible, and so thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Well done. Cool. Hope your parents caught that from home. They paid their dues. Okay, business and finance. I need a motion to approve a resolution.
I make a motion for approval of Resolution 2019-2020-001, resolution authorizing the issuance of Beverly Hills Unified School District, LA County, California, 2019 general obligation refunding bonds.
I second the motion.
Thank you very much. Any questions, colleagues? Keegan made a presentation earlier, so I think we have been clearly vetted. Mr. Roach, I assume you are fully in support of this action. Thank you, sir. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, colleagues. Planning and facilities.
I move to approve ratification of amendment number 1 for special inspection and material testing services with ASCO Incorporated at the Beverly Vista School.
A second.
Any questions on this item? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
I move ratification of amendment number 2 for DSA Inspector of Record Services with Noland Construction Services, Inc. for the Horace Mann School Building A Modernization Project.
Second the motion.
Thank you very much. Questions on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mrs. Marcus.
Mrs. Marcus.
Okay,
For
item.
the approval of amendment number 2 to the agreement for asbestos and lead abatement monitoring services with Environment Audit, Inc. at El Rodeo School.
Second.
Okay, questions? Okay.
Yes, I have a question. Why the amendment exactly? I mean, I read the transmittal, but was there a change in scope of work or?
This amendment for El Rodeo using environmental audit is for a resurvey of the remaining lead and asbestos in the campus. As you recall, previously the A, B, C, and D cluster of El Rodeo went through an abatement construction phase. Environmental audit was not only the monitoring inspection lab that monitored the work of during that project, but also prepared the initial report. What we did for this $1,996 is had them return to the project, resurvey the project, and update the report to develop a bid document that ProWest used to bid out the rest of the remaining asbestos and lead abatement, so we could have a current and coherent document so all the bidders can bid equally upon. So for $1,996 to take that old report and rewalk the buildings for what had been done and had not been done, and encapsulate Building E's scope of work into that report, we felt it was very beneficial to the project.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item
Move
D.
approval of the pre-construction agreement for the El Rodeo campus seismic retrofit and modernization product with Pro West
Second.
Constructors.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Finally, item E.
I move approval of the lease-leaseback agreement for El Rodeo campus seismic retrofit and modernization project with Pro West Constructors. Pro West and approval of the guaranteed maximum price for Phase 1 of the project.
I'll second that. Any questions? Mr. Pyleman, can you just explain what Phase 1 is on this?
Phase 1 for El Rodeo is the asbestos abatement, remaining asbestos in A, B, C, and D, plus the initial abatement of Building E, what was previously used and vacated earlier this summer, as well as the lead abatement for the entire campus, anything that was left over in the A, B, C, and D, as well as the first time for lead abatement in Building E. The selective demolition that goes along with all 5 of those structures to clear out the existing slabs on grades and other items identified to be demolished for new windows, shear walls, structural elements, structural foundations, and so forth. In addition, in this GMP is the stormwater pollution prevention plan development, deployment of BMPs, and the monitoring of the BMPs for the entire project, and the mobilization of Pro West forces to begin this work approximately on August 10th. We plan to follow a bidding schedule similar to the B1, B2 project and come back to you with the Phase 2 GMP late this fall. And that would include the structural concrete, steel, framing, long lead time items such as elevators, theatrical equipment, and so forth.
And how many phases does El Rodeo have? 3 or 4?
We're right now proposing through a 3-phase bid release. Number 1 to get the work going. Number 2 for all the structural work, and then the final be the finishes. All 3 of those PGMPs together would make the final guaranteed maximum price for the project.
Okay, and is the 3rd phase include the site work? Does the 3rd phase include the site work?
The site development is going to be in the 3rd phase of bidding. We've kind of toyed back and forth with the 2nd phase and 3rd phase as far as procurement.
Okay.
I think it fits better in the 3rd phase. We want to look at the site development a little bit, and we have some questions during facilities committee on the site.
Right, so you may need to do some procurement during the 2nd phase.
Yeah.
To continue in the 3rd phase.
The main thing is to not inhibit progress on the project.
Okay.
You anticipate Phase 1 being how long?
The demo and abatement is approximately 4.5 months. So we'll be in front of you in the latter part of November for approval of the next phase. We'll be advertising for bid September 5th, I believe. 12 to 14 packages, I think, are in that package. So it's simultaneously with bidding the work at B3, B4. So there's lots to do in the bidding and scoping side of things between those 2 major cap projects.
And the demo and abatement doesn't include the already existing demo and abatement that was partially completed, right?
No, that's why we had that survey done to pick up anything that was left after the initial project.
Okay, thank you. Okay, colleagues, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Also, I've been told that we need to do a roll call vote on the resolution for the refunding bond. So although it was a 5-0 vote, I guess policy needs us to call that out. So Ms. Kraushauer, can you just, for the record?
Yes, I vote yes.
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 Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Communication from board members. Anybody have anything else they would like to contribute to the evening?
I think I forgot it, but I just wanted to applaud Dr. Breggy and Ms. Starkins for that amazing presentation, and also enjoy the last bits of summer.
I really had some remarks that I wanted to make, would have taken about 45 minutes, but in consideration of the time, I'll hold back.
Thank you.
I'm a woman of brief words.
Thank you.
No, just thank you so much for everyone for your presentations today, and enjoy the summer.
Okay, so we have our next regular board meeting will be August 13th, but after the conversation tonight, we will be meeting again, maybe once, maybe twice. August 13th is the next regular, scheduled. So, or irregular, as Mrs. Hacker said, our next irregular board meeting. So with that, thank you, everyone. We're getting to the hot season, so stay cool, stay hydrated, and we'll see you back soon. Meeting is adjourned.
Good job, gentlemen. Thank you. Jeff, I gotta come over and pick your brain one of these days.
Anytime.
I won't do it.